Chapter 1251. Can I join the fight on the day after tomorrow too? But, the restaurant is yours, Amy said seriously. Silence fell in the restaurant, and everyone was looking at Mag strangely. All right, let's go back and rest. Mag waved his hand calmly. He decided not to argue with a child. After everyone left, Amy followed Mag into the restaurant, and continued to innocently ask, "What species will we look for this time? We've got an elf big sister, a mermaid big sister, a giant dragon big sister, a moon nation big sister, an orc big sister, and a bat big sister. What other species can we look for? We can still look for a troll big sister, a goblin big sister, a dwarf big sister," Anna said after thinking about it seriously. Mag halted and pondered gravely. He quickly rejected this suggestion because he really couldn't get the beauty of these three species. The dwarf's height restrictions meant it wasn't easy for one to accomplish her job in the restaurant. For the troll, she would be too massive. Normal troll customers could only eat al fresco, let alone be a server. As for goblins, only the green goblin image appeared in Mag's mind. Although he had met quite a few goblin customers who had different skin color other than green, because they dwelled in the underground caverns for a long time, they always looked sickly, and because they were very skinny, given his ideals of beauty, they wouldn't be his choice for a server. Anyway, we have so many customers, we can slowly choose after we put up the notice. Mag shook his head with a smile, and didn't let the two imps continue to dish out weird suggestions. Okay, then I will go help big sister Gina sort out the eggshells. Amy walked to Gina, who was sorting out the mud casings of the beggar's chickens eaten by the customers today. I will help too. Anna followed and jogged over. Every night, Gina would spend some time sorting out the mud casings, and pack them into small packages. One package would allow one of her people to be freed of the curse. After a period of testing, she had already gotten standard dosage. One beggar's chicken mud casing would remove the curse for 2.5 of her people. To make it easier for her to make measurements, Mag bought an electronic scale and a pack of plastic bags for her from the system. The sorting job became much more efficient. With Mag and the little girl's help, Gina only used 10 minutes to sort out all the mud casings. "Thank you so much," Gina said smilingly, and kissed Amy and Anna before giving Mag a big hug. "Don't lift your legs next time." Mag put Gina's legs that naturally twined around him down to the ground with resignation. Everything about Gina was great, except that she couldn't get rid of this habit. He wouldn't be able to explain himself if Irina saw this in the future. "Okay." Gina stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. She kept the individually packed mud casings into the crystal ball, and expectantly asked, "Mr. Mag, can I join the fight on the day after tomorrow too? You can come with us if you want to join in." Mag nodded. Gina wasn't just some busta bimbo, she had an 8th tier power. Although she was also a busta bimbo, she could still have some influence if she came along. Furthermore, with her presence, it would be much easier to communicate with Lantist. "Okay." Gina smiled as she also wanted to fight along with everyone. After washing up the two little ones, Mag crouched next to the bed and told them a bedtime story. Amy had already fallen asleep, while Anna was still looking at Mag. "Do you still not want to sleep yet, Anna?" Mag asked. "Uncle Mag, can I go along with all of you?" Anna said softly. She pursed her lips, and hesitantly said, "I miss Big Sister Shirley and Big Sister Gina one." Mag felt a pang of heartache as he gazed at Anna. It was Shirley and Gina one who saved her from bad guys, and she'd even lived with Shirley for a period of time. It was only natural that she missed them after being separated from them for a while. However, he wasn't sure if the fight on the day after tomorrow would turn into a melee. Even he wasn't sure that he could protect Anna, who couldn't defend herself at all. "If it is not convenient, then I am not going." "It's fine as long as you guys could save Big Sister Shirley," Anna quickly said and lowered her head as if she had done something wrong. "Anna, I know that you miss them, and want to see them again. Mag stroked Anna's head gently, and said, but we might be facing a very intense battle the day after tomorrow. Those baddies have a lot of people and are very powerful. All of us will have to focus on the battle totally, so I am afraid we can't bring you along this time. Anna nodded obediently and looked at Mag. Then, all of you, please be very careful. Don't worry. We will help them get out of the siege. They will be fine. Mag nodded and smiled. So, our little Anna has to sleep now. When I get to see Shirley, I will ask her to make time to see you. Okay. Anna nodded with a smile before closing her eyes obediently. Mag got up, turned off the bedside lamp, and went out of the room quietly. He wasn't in a hurry to sleep. Instead, he went into the study, and began to read up on the intelligence on the elves seriously again. They would be facing a battle very disproportionate in manpower on the day after tomorrow. Although Lantist had a very strong powerhouse brigade, fighting on land held many unknown factors for them. Mag had to give his all during that 15-minute-long peak form period. His target, objective, and how much had to be done all had to be accurately calculated and analyzed. Elizabeth. I am going to shred you into pieces. In a ravine, Fox, who had transformed into a giant dragon 100 meters big, snarled. Pft! Pft! It's still coming. After the two weird sounds, Fox's expression changed, and the 100 meters huge giant dragon became a blue flame-ejecting fighter jet. He bounced around the ravine before falling into the valley in a slump. Rodu. The royal palace. Bedchamber. The king turned to look at the tossing and turning queen as he consoled her, "Don't worry. Vanessa is with Abraham now. He will take care of her. Moreover, I have also sent people to protect her. No one will be able to harm her. Your Majesty, this girl has never been to a place so far away. She'd even left the Empire's boundary. What if she meets some bad people and something bad happens to her?" The Queen was still worried, and wished she could go and get Vanessa immediately right now. Today's hot pot was delicious. "Let's have hot pot again tomorrow," Vanessa said to Lola while brushing her teeth. She had a happy smile on her face. "Madam, Miss Gloria starts to shower." Right at this moment, Caesar called out softly. "Where is it?" Camilla, who was initially standing on top of the tree branch, changed into a hanging position, and stared at the little window that had a dim light on. Rib. Before she could even see anything clearly, the curtains were drawn close. "No more," Caesar said resignedly. "Life is so boring. When will Miss Gloria understand my feelings for her? What's so good about men? Lesbianism is actually the best," Camilla said melancholically after taking a big gulp of wine as she sat on the tree branch again. "Madam, if we go up north to take part in the event, would it affect the vampire tribe?" Caesar asked. "So what if they find out? The elves had never liked us demons. It's rather interesting to irritate those chaps from the Wind Forest." Camilla pursed her lips with an odd expression. "However, I just feel very uneasy whenever I am reminded that I am going to save that woman Irina. In that case, should we not go?" Caesar shivered a little too. Irina's notoriety was known throughout the Demon Islands. Whenever a demon child refused to go to bed, the demon mother would threaten, "Irina will come to get you if you continue to cry." Now, they were actually going to save this big shot. This feeling was indeed a little odd. Escape? This is not in my character. There was a hint of pride on Camilla's face. She spread out her arms, transformed into a black bat, and disappeared into the dark of the night. Rex reached out and grabbed Connie, who was making a face behind him in the dark, and gravely said, "A qualified assassin will not do such a juvenile action such as making a face behind his target. The opportunity to strike usually appears in the blink of an eye. If you can't grasp this chance, you will be the one who dies." "Master, how did you see me? I've already concealed myself." Connie, who was wearing black tights, was lifted up by her collar, and looked shocked. If you can only conceal yourself at this level, anyone above 7th tier will be able to sense your location. Rex put Connie onto the ground, and extended 2 fingers to pinch the narrow dagger she sneakily poked out from her sleeve. Your method to attract attention is too lousy, and your expression is over the top. It will raise suspicion instead. For an assassin, this is also lethal. But, I really cannot learn how to pretend to be someone else. Connie kept her dagger with frustration. During these times, besides learning the techniques of concealing an assassination from her master every day, she also had to learn how to be different characters in different circumstances. The former 2 were still okay. Given her natural talent, her growth was fast. However, when it came to role play, she was absolutely hopeless. She could only play herself. Rex stared at Connie for a while, and then suddenly burst out laughing. Connie blinked, and aggrievedly said, "Master, what are you laughing at? Although I am a little stupid, you cannot laugh at me." Rex shook his head, and smilingly said, "When I was learning how to be someone else, I could never make myself be someone else successfully. Because of my character and the iconic bald head and eyes, I got noticed easily wherever I went." Connie looked at Rex's head, which already had hair, and curiously asked, "Then, how did you succeed?" "I chose to give up." Rex shook his head. "But I still became the best assassin. I don't need to camouflage, and even rarely use concealment. I could kill whomever I wanted to." When faced with absolute power, any camouflage and concealment were simply extras. Connie looked with a complex look at Rex, who was staring up into the starry sky at a 45-degree angle with a lonely expression, and said, "Master, you are so over the top." "Ahem." Rex cleared his throat and retrieved his gaze. He lamented to Connie, "You are the first assassin I met who can't camouflage because she isn't smart enough. This situation is really rare. You are also the first man I met who turned from an assassin into warrior because you got no hair." The 2 of them stared at each other in silence, and then laughed at the same time. "You have the blood of the Nimravati one in you. At first, I thought it was just a legend, but the totem strength had indeed manifested in you. Hence, you have a very natural gift for concealment, and could conceal your aura and sounds. This will become the support for you to become the best assassin, but it will not improve your power directly," Rex said to Connie gravely. "If you want to kill Gary before he executes your brother, you have to follow my training strictly." Connie stopped smiling and nodded seriously when she heard that. "Why didn't you leave with them earlier?" Elizabeth asked Yabimiya, who was reading through the jade tablet excitedly, as she leaned against the headboard. "Because I can't bear to leave everyone and you, big sister." Yabimiya put down the jade tablet and leaned her head on Elizabeth's shoulder, and smilingly said, "I will not be able to lean on sister's shoulder if I go to Golden Dragon Island." Elizabeth's gaze softened, and she touched Yabimiya's head as she gently said, "In order to become a powerhouse, you have to get used to loneliness. That mister gave me the cultivation methods earlier, so I don't have to go to Golden Dragon Island to practice the cultivation methods. Like this, I still could become stronger and chase away those baddies who want to harm you." Yabimiya picked up the tablet with a determined gaze, but soon her expression deflated, and she said with resignation, "But, how am I supposed to use this tablet? Why don't I see the cultivation methods?" "Drip your blood essence onto this tablet to unlock the blood seal on it. Then, you will be to see it." Elizabeth formed an ice crystal needle in her hand, and pressed it gently onto Yabimiya's fair finger. A drop of golden blood emerged on the tip of her finger, and then fell onto the golden jade tablet. The golden jade tablet lit up with a glaring golden beam instantly, and glowing words began to appear on the tablet. At the same time, a shadow of a golden dragon flashed across the tablet. This was an accident. The topic that was the most discussed in all the social circles today was without a doubt that impactful hot pot. "Should we go and eat hot pot tonight?" "Okay. This had become a very common conversation between foodies setting up their dinner appointments. The subverted eating method that got the customers involved in the cooking was very innovative, and the standardized cooking time also allowed the customers to cook delicious food. This piqued the curiosity of many people. However, the average spending of 1,000 plus per person had restricted many people's actions. Therefore, eating hot pot had become a very extravagant affair. However, to the foodies, DIY was where the fun was when they didn't have the money. A maiden with long flaxen hair came forward, and asked her colleague who was doing the accounts, Shan, tell me again, how long did you dip all the different ingredients in the pot? I will go and try it tonight. Give it up, Rena. I feel that the crux of the hot pot isn't in the ingredients, but in that pot of scrumptious broth. However, I have no idea what other spices and condiments were in the broth apart from chilies, so I also don't know what to do. The maiden named Shan raised her head to look at Rena, and passed her the ledger casually. It's already the end of the month. You'd better complete the review by today before you get off work, or else the boss will never let you off. She dumped such a heavy workload on the two of us, and scolded us whenever she felt like it. The monthly salary is not enough for us to have a few good meals. I really have enough of this, boss. Fatigue could be seen on Rena's pretty face. You're right. It will be great if we can be the service staff of Mamie Restaurant. We will get to eat the delicacies made by Boss Mag every day, and even if we will be very busy during operation hours, Boss Mag is so nice and handsome it would be a bliss to work there, Shan said with a look of anticipation. It's so good. Rena's eyes lit up. Don't even think about it. The women who want to become Mamie Restaurant's service staff could go around the entire Chaos City for 3 times. To become Boss Mag's women, they have to be beautiful and capable, but Shan looked at her flabby tummy, and then looked at Rena. Rena was rather pretty and slender, but her dressing was too casual and old-fashioned. Her flaxen hair was tied up casually with a hemp thread, and she was wearing an old linen long skirt. She would definitely look out of place if she was standing next to Mamie Restaurant's service staff. You've got a point. That restaurant wouldn't want someone like me, as it is so sophisticated. Rena nodded sadly, but her eyes quickly lit up. Even though I can't join their staff, I could still go and watch them eat hot pot today. Maybe I could learn from them. I really wish you could succeed so I could go to your house to eat hot pot in the future. Shan nodded with a smile. This colleague of hers was only so-so in her work, but she was very gifted when it came to food. As long as she saw how the food was made, she could recreate it when she got home, and it would taste 80 to 90% like the original. However, those foods were from the normal restaurants and street vendors. She didn't quite believe she could replicate the delicacies made by Boss Mag perfectly. The foods that Boss Mag made were unique. I'd better complete my work first, otherwise that demoness will come and look for trouble with me. Rena went back to her seat, hugging the ledger. During the afternoon break, Gina received the flying fish reply from Lantist. The High Priest of Lantist would personally lead 400 Lantistine merfolk warriors to support their efforts. Amongst them were 10 10th tier powerhouses, 49th tier powerhouses, and the rest were all 7th tier and 8th tier powerhouses. It was a rather extravagant and sincere reinforcement lineup. Mag lit that secret missive up, and said to Gina, inform them that Mia and Elizabeth will set out to fetch them tonight. They will be going up north together to support the Night Elves. All right. Gina nodded. She wrote another missive, and stuffed it into the flying fish's stomach before releasing it. Boss, although I would like to join you guys very much, my master said I would most likely end up in the opposite camp if I go along. Do you think I should still go? Connie laid her head on the counter as she yawned. She had dark eye circles and looked very sleep-deprived. I think you'd better not. Mag gazed at Connie, and felt that her master was indeed a good judge of character. Okay. Connie shrugged. She knew herself, and it would be really awkward if she got lost on the battlefield. Meow. Ugly Duckling came over, plopped onto her arm, and slept comfortably. Ugly Duckling, you only sleep and eat every day. Be careful, you might become a pig, Connie said disdainfully. She then yawned and fell asleep on the counter. Oh, yes. I need to write a recruitment advertisement. Mag suddenly remembered a very important issue. The hot pots trial operation last night had fully revealed that the restaurant was understaffed. Mia and the ladies had to serve the customers of both the normal zone and the hot pot zone, so they had to run around the restaurant. As a result, the error ratio had increased a few times, and they looked very busy. This was not in line with the business philosophy that Mag had established for the restaurant. Busy servers would only lower the customer's dining experience, and made the affair of enjoying the good food seem rushed. This was a problem that he had to solve as soon as possible. Mag took a little blackboard and pondered for a moment before he started writing. Then, he hung it at the door straight away. Boss, we have read your recruitment advertisement. Are you sure that you are really asking for those qualities? In the evening when Mia and the ladies came to work, they came in and looked at Mag with a strange expression. Are the requirements too broad? Mag was a little puzzled. No, I feel they are a little too detailed, just like. Mia shook her head as she tried to find a suitable word. You can ask for good looks, but why do you care how busty a server is? Furthermore, the butt has nothing to do with serving dishes? Or you are actually not just looking for service staff? Babla put one arm across her chest and supported her chin with the other as she looked at Mag judgingly. Everyone began to look at Mag. Mag cleared his throat before saying, ahem. It isn't what you ladies think it is. The sizes of the bosom and the butt are just to create a rough limit so we can screen out some people who do not meet the criteria. Otherwise, the people lining up for the interview could go all the way to the city's gates. I choose my service staff based on their capabilities and ability to react to different situations. Ah, Connie stretched as she yawned. Then, she rubbed her eyes and said, you are all here. Are we starting dinner soon? All of them looked at Connie, and then stared at Mag. No words were necessary, as all was understood. All right. This was an accident, Mag was embarrassed. Chapter 1254 Mamie Restaurant's Recruitment. You're right. Look at all the servers in Mamie Restaurant, all of them match the criteria. Boss Mag chose his service staff exactly like how he should choose his wife. I used to match the requirements, but after I met Mamie Restaurant, this flabby tummy is so depressing. Will I be still in time if I change my sex now? I feel Boss Mag has a serious discrimination against us men. No woman is our match if we decide to become flirtatious. Have you forgotten about that lad who was performing at the square with a bow tied to his waist? Mamie Restaurant's recruitment advertisement caused waves among the customers who were lining up, and became the hottest topic of that day. The detailed requirements had screened out most people, and those customers who couldn't match the criteria could only watch for fun. Some of those maidens who could match the criteria were already planning to ditch their boss and join Mamie Restaurant. Their lives would be fantastic from that point on. The happiest employees in Chaos City had to be from Mamie Restaurant. They were able to eat the delicacies Boss Mag made for free every day with him and the little boss at the same table. It made one happy to simply think of it. Wow! Mamie Restaurant is recruiting. Vanessa came to the advertisement and read it through seriously before surprisingly saying, I think I match all the criteria. Maybe I can go work at Mamie Restaurant. Young mistress, this isn't a good, Lola said anxiously. If her young mistress went to be a service staff member in a restaurant, Lola would be dead meat when His Majesty heard about it. No way. If you dare to register yourself, I will send you home tomorrow. Abraham shook his head. There was no room for negotiation in his tone of voice. It was already very stressful for him to let Vanessa stay in Chaos City. He wouldn't be able to account to the king if she went to be a server. Vanessa pouted her lips and gazed at that advertisement lingeringly. She could only give it up temporarily. Recruiting new service staff. Rena, who came to Mamie restaurant straight after work to secretly learn how to make the hot pot, went up to read in detail. She got more excited as she read. She almost matched all the requirements. Even though she looked skinny, she had always gone to run in the mountains to build up her body. She didn't collapse even if the demoness forced her to continuously work overtime for a month. The basic monthly salary of $3,500 with living quarters and meals included and a day off each week was much better than her accounting job now. Of course, the crux was that the living quarters and meals were included. Mamie Restaurant was the #1 restaurant in Chaos City now. Although she didn't have the ability to afford hundreds for a meal due to her mother's illness, and had never been to Mamie Restaurant, she had heard plenty about the delicacies from others. If she joined the service staff of Mamie Restaurant, she could eat all the delicacies for free. This job was simply too attractive. If she only had to be a server at a restaurant who simply had to take orders from customers and serve the dishes, she would have got no problem at all. Damn! Then, Rena's gaze landed on the line about the bust. She lowered her head to take a look at her own flat bosom, and couldn't help but let out a moan. What was wrong with being flat-chested? What did being flat-chested have to do with others? She couldn't even be a service staff member because she was flat-chested? This really made her sad and depressed. A busty succubus looked at Rena with a smile, and said, "Maiden, go back and eat more melons. You might be able to grow them some more." Rena felt inferior after looking at her busty bosom. She was already 19 years old, and these would take more than a day or two even if she could grow them. Interview time, the day after tomorrow's afternoon, after the operation hours. In Mamie Restaurant. Rena remembered the time and walked away from the notice. She had to think of an idea before the day after tomorrow. However, she didn't leave the premises, she only went to stand further away. She came to watch how they were eating the hot pot today. Even if she couldn't become an employee of Mamie Restaurant, it would be great to eat hot pot at home. After everyone in the restaurant had their dinner, Mag opened the door for business. The customers' reaction to the staff recruitment was as enthusiastic as Mag had expected. After rejecting a few burly men who strongly recommended themselves smilingly, Mag began the busy dinner service. The famed hot pot became even more well-known after a day. Many customers came to eat the hot pot in groups, so almost all of them sat together at the group tables. So many people are having hot pot. Rena looked at the tables filled up with customers. Many more customers still had to line up and wait, but none of them showed any signs of impatience. After a while, a hot pot that was ordered by one of the customers was carried out. The rich spicy aroma rose up spirally from the golden red broth, and then dispersed in the air. How many chilies did the boss add into the broth to make it so red? However, beside the spiciness, the aroma is also very rich. It isn't covered by the spiciness, and is instead brought out by it. Rena looked at the pot of red broth at the nearest table before closing her eyes to feel that aroma. She had an amazing nose, or one should say she had a special gift in differentiating the scents. She could separate the individual scents from the mix, and identify each and every one of them. The aroma of the meat was the first she sensed. Furthermore, this rich aroma could only be achieved by cooking the bones for 10-odd hours. She could identify another 7, 8 spices and condiments in the smell, but she couldn't identify the rest. It wasn't because she couldn't differentiate them, but because she had never seen them before, so she couldn't say what they were. They were not the spices commonly seen in the market. Moreover, the oil that was floating in the red soup should be beef tallow. The scent and color of beef tallow and lard were different. She often went to the market to collect the animal fat that the butchers didn't want, so she was familiar with beef tallow. The spices are too expensive, so it's impossible to even make a simple version. Rena sighed. Money was what she lacked the most, but some of the spices cost as much as gold. She simply couldn't afford them. Your double flavor hot pot. Please enjoy. Right at this time, Elizabeth placed a double flavor hot pot on another table, and turned on the heat for them. "This is a bone broth." The eyes of Rena, who was about to give up, lit up. The soup pot that was separated in the center had a half with the red broth and another half with the creamy white clear broth. A few spring onions and mushrooms were floating in it, and it looked very refreshing. A minor but, even like this, it was an irresistible bowl of thick bone broth. "This is simple. Maybe I can buy the very cheap pork bones if I go to the market earlier in the morning. They would be the best for cooking broth. However, would it be a little bland if only the meat broth is used to cook the ingredients?" A hint of ponder appeared on Rena's face. Then, she saw that the young lady who ordered the clear broth went to the condiments area, and made herself a dish of condiments. She cooked the ingredients in the clear broth first before dipping them in the sauce and eating them. Gulp! Rena's throat moved along with it. She got it. Although the clear broth's taste was much lighter, the dipping sauce had solved this problem perfectly, and to accommodate different individuals' preferences, they could make their own dipping sauce that suited their own tastes. This boss is indeed a genius to come up with such an eating method. I will be able to try this clear broth hot pot tomorrow. Rena talked to herself happily. Even though her taste veered toward the spicy red soup base more, her mother would also be able to eat if she made the clear broth hot pot. Besides, she also could still make a dipping sauce that suited her taste for herself. Ayo, this hot pot smells so great. However, it's too pricey. I heard it cost a few hundred copper coins to have it once. Yes. The boss of this restaurant created wonderful dishes, but they are all very expensive. We can't afford them, so we can only sniff the aromas from here. If they only cost tens of copper coins, we could still try to bring our kids along for a meal, but they cost hundreds, and we still have to support our families with children and elderlies. How could we afford it? Rena heard the conversation of a few middle-aged men when she was about to leave, and she didn't feel good about it. She also wished to bring her mother to have a meal in such a beautiful restaurant if it only cost tens of copper coins. However, since there are so many people who wanted to eat the hot pot but couldn't afford it, and yet pork bones, duck intestines, and tripes are things that nobody wants in the market, would it be a great business opportunity if another restaurant could provide a hot pot that cost less? A thought suddenly appeared in Rena's head as she looked at the people who were watching others eating the hot pot enthusiastically. All these people were potential customers. Furthermore, she was confident that she could replicate the clear broth hot pot perfectly. Although the red broth hot pot was a little more difficult, it wasn't too difficult for her to come up with an alright red soup base after taking away a few spices. Per capita consumption would be less than 100. This price was already lower than the price of a single broth in Mamie restaurant. Being an accountant, she had quickly ascertained the huge profits and huge market within it. A strong fire began to burn inside Rena's heart, but it was soon extinguished by a pail of cold water. This is Boss Mag's invention. It's a little too much if I simply replicate it. It's akin to robbery. I think I'd better come back for the interview the day after tomorrow. Rena left after taking a look at those people who were still watching enthusiastically. She had to rush home to cook dinner for her mother. At night, after the operation hours were over, everyone cleaned up the restaurant. Elizabeth and Yabimiya were also preparing to go to the boundless sea realm. After you fetch the Lantistines, go to the north straight away. We will meet up at the 9th peak to the north of Vic Mountain. Elizabeth nodded. Mag turned to Gina, who was holding a crystal ball, and said, "Gina, you have to communicate with the Lantistine warriors properly, and remember to wear the uniform. Do not get into other trouble along the way." As the interpreter, Gina had to go to Lantist together with Mia, and at the same time bring along the uniforms that the Lantistine warriors had to wear for this mission. Gina nodded obediently. "Boss, how are you guys getting to the north if we are all gone?" Mia asked curiously. "I have already arranged for a flying steed. It will bring us up north tomorrow. You guys don't have to worry about us, Mag replied with a smile. Okay. Mia nodded and the three of them bade farewell to the rest. They climbed onto Elizabeth, who transformed into her true form, and they quickly became a small black dot in the horizon. Babla, you should go back and rest too, Mag said to Babla, who was still standing at the door. I want to try to reconnect with the Moon Nation again. They might have already fixed the teleportation portal, and then you could have a strong army from the Moon Nation as reinforcements, Babla said as she walked into the restaurant. This may not be a good thing. Mag cocked his eyebrows. The Norland continent was already in a mess now. If the Moon Nation and Norland continent became connected, a war might break out between them. This would be an outcome that nobody could foresee. Babla turned and asked Mag, "Don't you want me to go home?" "Big sister Babla, father had said that you would only grow up after a few years, so you don't have to worry," Amy reminded her. "Who said that? I'm already a grown-up now." Babla puffed out her chest, but she didn't sound confident at all. 15 years old. A minor. Mag pursed his lips. She was indeed a brat. Moreover, Babla was only 1.4 meters tall, and she looked just like a primary school kid, a primary kid who entered puberty early. Humph. One day, you people will know how popular this princess is in Moon Nation, Babla thought angrily. She walked one round in the Mamie restaurant, and finally stopped at the very center. She removed the necklace from her neck and held it in her hands. Then, she closed her eyes, and began to chant an obscure spell. A reddish gold beam lit up from the heart-shaped pendant of the necklace, and with Babla as the focal point, a golden shadow of an altar began to appear under her feet. It was like the scenario that Babla appeared for the first time. Babla opened her eyes, looked at the altar, and excitedly said, "It appears." Right at this moment, the golden beam flashed violently and then suddenly disappeared. The shadow of the altar also disappeared. I failed again, Babla lowered her head with despair in her eyes. She had tried many times after she arrived at the restaurant, but she could never establish the teleportation portal connection with Moon Nation, let alone restart the teleportation portal. Maybe she would never return to Moon Nation? Two little hands grabbed Babla's hands, and their owners softly said, "It's all right, big sister Babla. You still have us." Babla raised her eyes and looked at Amy and Anna in front of her with a gleam in her eyes. Chapter 1256. That's the crux, and it's going to be tested. The king's expression became severe too, but he still gently said, "Don't worry. The royal instructor is already hastening the repairs of the teleportation portal. They've also found a sealed spatial stone mine, and I have already ordered them to mine it as soon as possible. Once the teleportation portal is repaired, I will bring an army to get our child back." A minister entered the royal palace late at night, and loudly said to the guards at the gates, "Quick, report to His Majesty. An anomaly happened at the teleportation portal. It could be the princess trying to contact us." "Yes," the guard quickly replied. Princess Babla's disappearance had become the most important matter in Moon Nation. The urgent report was passed on, and soon the whole country knew about it, but the princess was still not found. A eunuch at the door knocked, and respectfully said, "Your Majesty, the royal instructor reports that an anomaly happened at the teleportation portal. It could be the princess trying to contact us." "What?" The king and queen almost sat up in bed together at the same time. The king couldn't even bother to get dressed. He let a maid cover him with a cape, and quickly strode out of the door. He said to the eunuch, "Summon the royal instructor in quickly." To the north of the goblin territory, a troop made up of thousands of elves silently entered the vicinity of the underground cavern, and met up with the elven army that was surrounding it. In a big tent, Helena ordered an adjutant in a cold voice, "Pass my orders on. The army shall rest in place and prepare for the combined attack on the underground cavern tomorrow." "Yes." That adjutant swiftly strode out with his order. In the brightly lit tent, only Helena and Sally were left. Sally hesitated for a moment before asking Helena, High Priestess, if Princess Irina and the Night Elves refuse to surrender when we attack the underground cavern tomorrow, what is going to happen then? Since they refuse to surrender, the only outcome will be death, Helena replied calmly. Sally clenched her fists subconsciously. I know you pity them. Helena turned to look at Sally. But if you are to become the new elf princess and perhaps the ruler of Wind Forest, you have to cast away this kind of useless pity. As a ruler, you need to have a strong power and tough means. If you cannot let your people fear you, you can't make them listen to you. But they are still our people, after all, Sally said with a frown. From the moment they chose to rebel, they were no longer our people, but the enemies of Wind Forest. Helena smirked. Anybody who tries to shake our rule will be our enemy. And for an enemy, death is the best way for them to leave the stage. However, if the Queen leaves her seclusion and finds out about this, since the Queen agreed with my policy to make the elf species a species so powerful that no other species dare to trifle with, she is not going to say anything with regard to the correct choice that we make because of her personal feelings. The interests of the elf tribe are above everything. The Queen believes that too, Helena said with a cold expression. Sally pursed her lips and suddenly felt a little sad. Helena's words seemed to be proven since the Queen had allowed Helena to act out against the princess child. But was this really the correct choice? The so-called interests of the elf tribe were only the interests of the several big families. To the normal elves, they had lost their freedom, and were exploited. They had never really gained any interests. You are a clever child. I know you will understand my efforts for the elf species. Helena gazed at the crystal ball that was hovering in front of her. There was also a vast starry sky in the crystal ball with numerous stars shining brightly. One or two became shooting stars every now and then, and one of the bright stars had a black shadow over it and was flickering. Sally lowered her gaze and ceased talking. Her fingernails were already embedded deeply in her clenched fists' palms. She couldn't change anything in her current condition, and could only hold everything in until one day when she could lead the elf species, when she could finally plot on changing everything. This was her promise to Blower. They had chosen two completely different paths, but they were meeting here once again. When they saw each other tomorrow, they would be in different camps. She could even watch him and those respectable elves die. At the peak of the mountain, two figures were standing together, one behind the other. Why are you not leaving? Irina turned and looked at Shirley, who was standing behind her. Her exquisite face was still the rare beauty among the elves even after she went through the many tough battles. Even if I left, I couldn't blend in with the normal elves, so why don't I follow your highness and take part in this epic battle that is going to be recorded in the history books of the continent? This is rather good too, Shirley said to Irina with a smile. This elf was the only one that he acknowledged to be prettier than him. Even though she didn't know he was that little boy who always chased after them, to be able to follow her into battle for one last time and fight for the freedom of the elves, even death no longer felt scary. Yes. People as beautiful as us sometimes have such trouble. Irina nodded, feeling very understanding. A smile appeared on Shirley's lips. The princess was still so humorous. However, her heart had long belonged to that powerful man. But, why is this the last battle? Irina's gaze landed on the allied camps below, and she smilingly said, this will be the first battle that we started for the fight for freedom. Our motive is not to die heroically, but to let our people see our determination and the hope in the resistance. We will spread the embers of freedom throughout the Wind Forest, and when the autumn winds start to blow, they will become a raging fire and ignite the entire forest. Remember that. That's the crux, and it's going to be tested. I'll remember it. A gleam appeared in Shirley's eyes. She seemed to have found a career that she could devote her whole life to. Irina turned around and gravely said to Shirley, therefore, you cannot die tomorrow. If I fail to leave here, you will bring Ferris away from here. Back to Chaos City. Ozzy, you've got to go to the north by yourself tomorrow. This position. Can you remember it? On the top of a mountain peak at the northwest of Chaos City, Mag was teaching Ozzy to recognize a position with a map. The magic potion shop. Krasud took a sip of his wine while staring at Urian, who was sitting across from him. He pursed his lips. I feel awkward when I am reminded that I have to ride on the same flying bird together with you tomorrow. I am afraid I might kick you off. Urian smirked too. I am not scared. I can fly. Krasud was smug. Chapter 1257 Kill anyone who resists. Thank you very much, Mag said with appreciation before he turned and left. This battle was very unpredictable, so Mag didn't want Amy and Anna to undertake this risk. Furthermore, he also needed to focus on this battle, as any accidents could send them into an irrevocable position. He is going away now. I wonder what he is going to do since he has left the two girls at home? Zixi looked at Mag's retreating back, puzzled. She walked to the restaurant. Her mission today was to play with the girls. She had already told her boss yesterday. Speaking of it, her boss said he was also going on a trip today, and he, too, didn't mention where he was going. These people were really very mysterious. Beyond the city, a beastmaster handed a whip to Mag, and sternly reminded him, "Boss, I have trained this white-head eagle for years. Please make sure he is safe and bring him back to me. Don't worry, we are only going to visit our relatives in the south. If we are quick enough, we could even return the white-head eagle to you tonight. Moreover, the security deposit that I gave could buy you another 2 white-head eagles, so what are you worrying about?" Mag, who had stuck a beard on himself and made himself another few tones tanner, looked just like a middle-aged man in his 40s. Meanwhile, Babla at the side was wearing a gauze hat that covered her whole head and made her look just like a child. She was also unrecognizable. Okay. The Beastmaster nodded. He had a point. This man was really very generous with the security deposit. Mag reached out to touch the big white head of that white-head eagle before leaping onto its back. Babla soon followed and floated onto its back. The white-head eagle spread its wings and rose into the sky instantly. They soon disappeared on the horizon in the south. The wingspan of this white-head eagle was only about 7 meters. 2 people fitted snugly on its back, maybe even a little tight. Babla, who was sitting in the front, was almost cuddled by Mag. Aren't we going to the north? Why are we going southward? Babla was a little flustered, so she tried to make herself sound cool. We have to erase the tracks that we have once taken part in this battle. That's why we are flying toward the south for a few kilometers before we turn around and fly up north, bypassing Chaos City, Mag explained as he pulled the reins in, and made the white-head eagle continue its climb. This is bothersome. Babla pursed her lips, thinking all that was unnecessary. She moved about uneasily, but discovered that she was encircled by Mag completely. She couldn't move at all, and could only feel the hot breath that was close to her ear. Her blush deepened. Mag didn't want to take advantage of a young maiden, but this white-head eagle was the personal steed of the Beastmaster, and only had a front and back double seat installed. It was usually used to bring his wife and kid out for trips, so its design was also very family-oriented. He, who sat at the back, had to reach out to grasp the reins, and so had to embrace the seat in front. The white-head eagle was just a first-tier magic beast, and its intelligence was basically 0. It wasn't like Ozzy, whom he could simply tell at the direction or location, and it would be able to locate the place itself. If you left it alone, it could even toss and throw you down from the sky, hundreds of meters away from the ground, or chase after some female bird halfway and bring you way off to the Pacific Ocean. Apart from being not smart enough, not being windproof was also one of this white-head eagle's characteristics. It was a severe winter now, the coldest time of the year. Everything was white beneath them, and the snow hadn't melted yet. Sitting on the back of the eagle and going at a speed above 100 km per hour at an altitude of 500 meters while facing the wind head-on wasn't a comfortable experience. Babla, who was fidgeting initially, soon lost her senses because she was frozen. Frost began to form on her hair. Babla suddenly realized something, and she turned to resentfully say to Mag, "Hey, did you make me sit in the front so I can break the wind for you?" Mag lowered his head to look at Babla, who only reached his chin, and resignedly said, "I wish I had, but you have to be able to break it in the first place." Babla, whose height was being looked down on again, blushed. I will continue to grow." From the physical point of view, after the age of 15, a girl's height growth rate would slow down or even stop completely. However, breasts would continue to grow, Mag said calmly as he took a glance at Babla's breasts, which were totally disproportionate to her body. They would look rather exaggerated if they continued to grow. Jerk. Babla blushed as she sensed Mag's gaze. If they weren't in the air, she would jump up and give him a kick. Plop. Before Babla could say anything, Mag had already put a hooded helmet on Babla's head, pulled out a windproof insulation blanket from God knows where, and wrapped it around her. His arms went around her body and grabbed the reins. He began to turn the bird around and fly toward the north. Babla was taken aback. The cold wind was blocked off instantaneously, and a warm sensation surrounded her body. The helmet was covered with warm and comfortable fur, but the front of it was a pane of clear glass which allowed her to look out clearly. The soft and warm fur blocked the cold wind out and brought her warmth. As for her back, the hard chest behind her was as hot as fire. It was even warmer than the blanket. "Rest for a while. We will be facing a tough battle today," Mag whispered near Babla's ear before putting on his helmet. "Safety first." And, far behind the white-head eagle, a purple-striped griffin was following it slowly in the air. The light of the morning sun landed on the peak and lit up the dark caves. In the abandoned mine, traces of the previous mining activities could still be seen, and new traces were left on the stone walls due to the continuous battles during the last 2 weeks. Furthermore, right now, contingents of elven army who wore the same kind of armor had already gathered neatly at the bottom of the mountain, ready to launch the final attack on the underground cavern. "Lord Borg, the troops are already gathered. Should we launch the combined attack now?" a young commander asked Borg, who was standing on an elevated platform, respectfully as he rode over. "Let the troops wait for a while longer. High Priestess is coming from afar with her best warriors, we can't take this honor away from her." Borg shook his head as he looked at the thousands of elves, who had also gathered together further away, with a smirk. An adjutant came forward, and respectfully told Helena, "High Priestess, the troops have gathered. Should we launch the attack now?" Helena glanced at Borg, and a hint of disgust flashed through her eyes. She retrieved her gaze and looked toward the underground cavern with numerous caves, waved her hand, and said, "Attack! Eliminate the traitors! Kill anyone who resists." It's more or less a figurative remark exaggerating how far off the course the eagle could go, but we can't rule out an actual ocean here. Chapter 1258 Night Elves, Let's Fight for Freedom. In a spacious area in the underground cavern, the hundreds of elves present didn't show a hint of fear on their faces or make any attempts to retreat even though rocks could fall onto them any time. Irina stood in the middle of the crowd, and her gaze swept across all the old faces. They were the old soldiers that had defended the Wind Forest in the past. She loudly said, "Today's battle could be our last battle with the underground cavern as our base. To many of our comrades, it could also be their last battle. But many more of our comrades have already infiltrated our enemies' ranks. They will be bearing the mission of spreading the embers of the revolution among our enemies and make the fire of freedom blaze through the Wind Forest. Please go, Your Highness. Let us old soldiers take this last sentry. Please leave with the young ones who are still staying behind. You are the hope of the Wind Forest and the main support of the revolution. You cannot fall here," an old elf pleaded. Yes. Please go, Your Highness. Lead these young people to the final victory in this war and build the real elven state. The other elves began to plead as well. What the youngsters of the Wind Forest lack is courage and guts. Today, I will be telling them what they are fighting against, and what guts and freedom are. Fire seemed to have lit up in all the elves' eyes. Even though they were elderly 700 to 800 years old, their chests seemed to be filled with heated blood, as if they saw the queen who had led them in the fight against invaders in the past. The torrents that were gushing into the caves were blocked by a blue light screen, and then turned back into rising steam. The icicles and fireballs landed inside the caves that were sealed by rocks, so they, too, didn't do any damage to the night elves who were gathered in the inner part of the underground cavern. The war has begun. It's time for us to enter the stage. Irina turned and walked toward the cave's entrance. She waved her hands, and the flood that was gushing in from all the passageways turned back instantly as she disappeared from the cave. Bam, bam, bam. The flood that was in the underground cavern turned into ice columns, and flew out of the underground cavern from all the entrances. They became waterfalls that drenched all elves that surrounded the peak. Then, Irina appeared on the mountain's peak and looked down at the elven army. It's Princess Irina. The elves who were releasing magic stopped their actions subconsciously when they saw Irina, who was standing alone on the mountain's peak. In the past 10-odd years, Irina was always deemed the pride of Wind Forest and the next elf queen. Even though she had become the leader of the night elves, and was going against the rule of the Wind Forest, there was still a barrier in the elves' hearts that prevented them from acting against her. And those normal elven soldiers felt even more complicated now. The princess was fighting against the oppression for them, the lowly elves, yet they were standing against her and fighting for the oppressors. It made them embarrassed yet helpless. The excited emotions that were running high among the elves were suppressed quickly, and this suppression spread rapidly. Many elves even lowered their heads to avoid looking at Irina. Sally raised her head to gaze at that figure on the peak. Her white skirt was billowing in the wind like that of a goddess, and she looked downward on everything just like a regnant queen. She was still that proud princess even when in dire straits. People could only look up to her existence. You have mobilized all the elites of the Wind Forest to annihilate the night elves. Helena, Borg, how afraid of us are you? Irina looked at Helena and Borg as she smirked. Did the call for freedom terrify you? Borg's expression was severe when he looked at those elven soldiers who lowered their heads. He had to stop himself from whipping them. Helena remained cold as usual as she said to Irina, Irina, if you surrender with the night elves now, I will spare them. You will be placed under house arrest and judged by Her Majesty the Queen herself when she comes out from her seclusion. Surrender? This is not my style, nor is it the night elves' style. Irina shook her head and chuckled. This will be an extended war. The elves at the base will get together and overthrow your rule eventually. They will build a brand new free state. And today, we are going to kick off this war. Night elves, let's fight for freedom. Figures after figures of night elves began to appear at the cave entrances, and their shouts were deafening. There was a gleam dancing in all the elven soldiers' eyes as they looked at those elves who were shouting to fight for freedom. Something seemed to have touched their hearts and accelerated their beating. The middle-ranked commanders couldn't hide the fear on their faces. They'd already sensed the strong determination of those fellows as they surrounded the underground cavern for 1 month. They had defended the underground cavern with only 1/10 of their forces. If their numbers were to increase by another 10 folds or 100 folds, they dared not imagine what the Wind Forest would become. Helena had a dark expression. She had given her all to the elf species before building this stable and powerful establishment, but now these fellows were trying to overthrow it. They all deserved to roast over the pit. The elf species has never been as powerful and stable like it is now. No other species will dare to invade the Wind Forest ever again, but you traitors are trying to topple the Wind Forest and create unrest and war. You all deserve to be executed and have your names carved onto the elf species pillar of shame. Helena raised up the crystal ball in her hands, and starlight was sparkling as she coldly shouted, "Troops, exterminate these traitors!" 6,000 elven soldiers began to charge toward the underground cavern. The magic spells and arrows that were halted earlier began to rain down on the mountain peak crazily. Irina closed her eyes, spread her arms, and softly chanted, "God of light, please bestow the power upon me and let the holy light illuminate the world." The magic caster's staff raised up in front of her and began to spin crazily. Beams of light began to shoot out from the golden ball at the top of the magic caster's staff. The instant the chanting stopped, golden light that was brighter than the sun suddenly burst out from the golden ball and radiated out. My eyes! The elves who were charging and surrounding the peak covered their eyes at the same time. Everything went black as if they had gone blind, and their formations became a mess. Irina opened her eyes as she grabbed her magic caster's staff, and shouted in a cold voice, "Helena, you snatched my newborn child when I was at my weakest after childbirth. Let's settle this score today." She then took a step forward and disappeared from the mountain's peak. Chapter 1259 Light's Destruction. Helena snorted coldly as a patch of starry sky appeared above her head and blocked the magic caster's staff. Boom! A muffled thump erupted as the magic caster's staff slammed into the starry sky. The dark starry sky trembled and the stars flickered, but they continued to hold. Irina appeared. Her hands were holding the magic caster's staff, and she was maintaining her posture of slamming downward. Not many people knew that the pride of the Wind Forest was this world's only light-based great magic caster. At the same time, she was also a powerful melee magic caster. Too bad, Helena was one of the few who knew. Hence, she wasn't flustered by Irina, who suddenly switched to melee. Her calm demeanor showed that she had expected it. The standoff continued, but the starry sky that was hovering above her like a shield suddenly spread out like water and engulfed Irina instantaneously. Starry Sky Domain. Helena's most powerful domain, which was also the domain that allowed her to achieve the most gain. The face-off of 10th tier great magic casters. Whoever could get the other party into her domain basically placed herself in an unassailable position. Helena's Starry Sky Domain. It indeed wasn't that simple. Borg, who wasn't affected by the holy light earlier on, was looking at the area engulfed by the black starry sky. Even he couldn't get a glimpse of what was happening inside. However, that vast and mysterious starry sky domain and the powerful magic waves that he couldn't ignore made him wary. After Irina was destroyed, Helena and him would have an inevitable battle. It was she who let him ascend to his current position, but she wouldn't allow him to go any higher than this. Being the great general of the Wind Forest no longer satisfied him. He wanted to be the king of the Wind Forest and the ruler of Norland continent. The power that came from the alternate world began to stir inside his body again. His bargain with the devil had only just started. Although he had encountered some problems initially, they had re-established their connection. However, he had to pay a greater price this time as he would need to sacrifice some of his people. He didn't have much time left. Apart from Irina, he also had to get rid of Helena as soon as possible so he could gain control of the Wind Forest. A worm-like black line suddenly appeared in between his eyebrows before disappearing in the blink of an eye. His red irises slowly became normal again. The elves that were blinded by the holy light's illumination gradually regained their vision, but magic began to rain down on them from the top of the mountain like arrows. The elves who weren't prepared for this went into this attack head-on, and hundreds of them fell immediately. Many elves retreated in a haste, and their formations were in a mess. Meanwhile, the two commanders in charge were in that starry sky domain now, and nobody had any idea what was happening in there. However, this domain was Helena's, and she was deemed to be second only to the queen. She'd once led the elf species to victory in the racial wars together with the queen, and expelled the demons who invaded the Wind Forest. Now, she had trapped Irina in her starry sky domain, so there was almost no doubt who would be the winner. If Irina was defeated, the night elves would be in a disarray. They didn't even have a 9th-tier magic caster. It was only a matter of time before they were vanquished. Your Highness! Sally, who was standing close to the starry sky domain, clenched her fists as she gazed at that black starry sky. She could no longer participate or interfere with a battle of this scale. Being trapped in her opponent's domain had already decided the outcome of this battle. Princess! Pyrrhus exclaimed at a cave's entrance. She wanted to dash out subconsciously, but Shirley grabbed her wrist. You can't help even if you go there. You will even be a burden to the princess. Shirley shook her head as she stared at the starry sky magic. She had a hint of anticipation while being very nervous at the same time. The princess was the most beautiful and clever elf that she had ever seen. She didn't believe she would let herself be caught in such an irrevocable state so easily. Just as all the elves were expecting Helena to capture Irina and declare the end of the Night Elves' rebellion, a beam of blinding gold light hacked open a pathway on the pitch-black starry sky like a razor-sharp longsword. Irina floated out of the hacked-open gap in her white dress. A 100-meter-long light beam gushed out from the top of the magic caster's staff and swept across the army of elves. The armor and metal weapons of the elven soldiers dissolved instantaneously. Close to 1,000 elite soldiers were disarmed in the blink of an eye. The princess has broken out of the High Priestess's starry sky domain. The Night Elves were ecstatic and relieved. They didn't expect the princess to be so powerful that she wasn't even afraid of the starry sky domain. She actually broke out of it. Borg was also taken aback. He could vaguely sense Irina had become stronger than she was when she battled with him. His eyes twitched when his gaze landed on Irina's light beam and he felt frustrated. He felt an extremely strong hate for this holy light. He wanted to hide from it, yet wanted to destroy it completely at the same time. Seems like this light-type magic is a threat to me. It's fortunate that there is only one light-type great magic caster, and she is going to die here today. Borg's eyes narrowed slightly as he grabbed the long sword at his waist. If necessary, he didn't mind attacking Irina together with Helena as long as it would ensure her death. This is too bad. I wish you had been more obedient. There is no one more suitable than you to protect the Wind Forest. Helena looked with a hint of pity at Irina who flew out, but it soon turned into coldness. Since she was already beyond control, she had to be destroyed completely. The starry sky began to expand rapidly, and engulfed everything within a 1,000 meters radius. The sunlight disappeared, and only the dark sky and sparkling stars remained. And right at this moment, Irina raised up the magic caster's staff like the only torch in the dark night that kept on burning stubbornly. Starfall, Helena said calmly while looking at Irina. The stars that were shining in the sky suddenly trembled violently, and then began to fall, dragging dozens of long red tails behind them. They were getting bigger right in front of those elves' eyes and crashed toward the peak and Irina. Irina looked up with a frown at the huge meteor that was 10-odd meters across. She raised her staff, and chanted, "God of light, please bestow upon me the power to destroy." Light's destruction. A beam of light shot toward the sky in a parabola and struck the meteor. It exploded in mid-air, shattered into uncountable rocks, and rained down. Chapter 1260 Howl. At the peak of a giant mountain, Mag addressed the 400 thugs in suits in front of him. The 400 Lantistine warriors had already put on the same type of black suit and black shades, and they were standing with a cool expression, giving off a scary big boss vibe. "Let's do it," everyone shouted in unison. Mag felt gratified that the Lantistine warriors bothered to reply to him. He turned and said to the High Priest, "High Priest, our mission for this trip is to rescue the Night Elves and expel the Wind Forest's army. Our target is their middle and upper combat power, and the time frame for this battle is about 30 minutes. If we cannot expel them, we will change our objective to escorting the Night Elves to the south. Do not fight to the death with Wind Forest. Don't worry, Mr. Mag. We will accomplish the mission." The High Priest nodded. Mag nodded before turning around to tell Yabimiya and Elizabeth, "Be careful. Boss. Please relax and wait for us here. We will bring Shirley and Ferris back with us safely, Yabimiya said with a smile. Yabimiya and Elizabeth transformed into dragons again, and let the 400 Lantistine warriors go on their backs. They spread their wings and flew to the north. You are really not coming along to have a look? Camilla tried to instigate Mag. I know you want me to die accidentally so the contract will be voided. Don't worry, I treasure my life very much. Mag shook his head with a smile. Scaredy cat. Camilla pursed her lips. She didn't expect him to guess her thoughts correctly. Let's go too. I can't wait to see what a war looks like in this world. Bablau looked at Camilla expectantly. She didn't know how to ride a white-head eagle, so she had to depend on Camilla to bring her along. All right. Let's go. Camilla grabbed Bablau's waist as a pair of black wings appeared on her back. They, too, flew toward the north. After watching the 2 giant dragons and 1 bat become little black dots and disappear at the horizon, Mag turned and let out a whistle. A purple-striped griffin pierced through the clouds and dived down from the sky. It spread its wings out and slowly landed on the mountain's peak. Howl! Ozzy tilted its head and let out a howl before wagging its tail and rubbing its head against Mag's arm. Squeak! Squeak! The white-head eagle that was so proud earlier was now so scared that it lay low on the ground. It let out 2 squeaks and dared not move a muscle. Old mate, it will be a tough battle today, but we've gotta go to save her. Otherwise, we will be pussies. Mag stroked Ozzy's head before leaping onto the griffin's back. He tore away his jacket to reveal his black tights one underneath. He wore his black cape and black and white face mask, and attached the Tiandu sword to his waist. Let's go. We have to get to the underground cavern before they do. The battle could have already started. Mag patted Ozzy's back lightly. Howl! Ozzy spread its wings and took off toward the sky. It dashed into the clouds, turned into a black shadow, and disappeared on the horizon. The battle between Helena and Irina was dark and dangerous. The scorching meteor that was scattered left countless big and small craters on the ground. Irina's skirt had holes in it, and Helena lost a few strands of hair, looking rather disheveled. The crystal ball emitted a dim glow, and stars died every now and then. There was already blood on the magic caster's staff, but it made Irina look even more holy and innocent. On the other hand, the elven troops began a new round of attacks, and engaged in a fierce battle with the night elves. The night elves, who were both outnumbered and outclassed by their enemies, displayed an awe-inspiring tenacity. After they exhausted all their magic and arrows, they began to throw rocks down at the elves at the bottom of the mountain. The troops with power, armament, and numbers way superior to the night elves failed to take the underground cavern even after charging 3-4 times. The elven troops were in awe when they saw the elderly elves who were bloody and stuck with arrows, yet still kept throwing rocks down bravely. What power was supporting them and made fearless? Was it freedom? Was death so negligible when compared to freedom? These young people began to question these problems in their hearts, and they started to charge slower. Their willingness to be exploited for their survival started to shake too. I had once joined forces with the Queen to expel the invaders from the forest and exhausted all my life's efforts to build a strong elf tribe. You should learn to respect and treasure it instead of attempting to destroy it. Helena lifted the crystal ball up gradually as she looked at Irina, who was pale and panting gently, then pointed to a flickering star in it, and said, "This is you, who used to be the brightest star in this starry sky, but is about to be annihilated. Irina, you have disappointed me. It is the forest that disappointed me. I used to think this was the most perfect place, but then I realized this was actually the dirtiest place, even dirtier than the Demon Islands." Irina shook her head, and her eyes darkened when she saw the troops closing into the peak. This was a battle that was destined to be lost spectacularly. Everyone knew it before it even started. And those old mates had displayed an awe-inspiring tenacity and the strongest declaration to freedom. The duel with Helena had exhausted the majority of Irina's power. With the support of the Starry Sky Domain, Helena's power had indeed surpassed her expectations. Second only to the queen were not empty words. The night elves didn't have any reinforcements, so it was a good thing that those young comrades had already evacuated. They should have disguised and merged into all the families and territories by now, spreading the embers of freedom among middle and low stratum. When the wind blew one day, these embers would become a huge forest fire. It was a pity that she wouldn't have the chance to witness it. I should have done more that time. It was a little waste that we only kissed. Irina thought about Meg and Amy, but she didn't want them to be here. If she was gone, Amy could only be taken care of by Meg. He cooks such wonderful dishes and Amy loves him. There won't be any problems even if I am not around, Irina thought and revealed a smile. Then there was no problem at all. She raised her staff and looked at Helena with a hint of craziness in her eyes. You won't have the chance to blow yourself up. Helena seemed to see through what Irina was thinking. She clenched her fists, and the starry sky in the magic ball collapsed instantaneously. The starry sky domain that was covering thousands of square meters contracted instantaneously too, and crashed toward Irina at the center. Collapse of the starry domain was Helena's ultimate magic. Howl! Right at this moment, a long howl came from the horizon, and a purple figure dashed toward the collapsing star domain from the sky like a lightning. It's the kind from neck down LOL. Chapter 1261 Please kill the target within 24 hours, Borg. Your Highness, the night elves exclaimed. They could only watch helplessly as the star domain collapsed. Just then, a figure descended from the sky, swooping towards the collapsing star domain like a stroke of purple lightning. He drew out a sword more than 10 meters long, and sliced the space in the rapidly shrinking star domain. Boom! The shrinking star domain was split open, and it exploded as the collapse was interrupted. Meanwhile, a purple-striped griffin continued diving into the chaotic fog at the speed of light, and flew out from the other side in an instant. A man with a black and white mask sat on the griffin's back with Irina in his embrace and a silver sword in his hand. The battlefield suddenly fell quiet. The elves all looked at the purple-striped griffin and were suddenly reminded of a legend. They looked at the masked man carrying Irina with fear and respect. Alex. A man whose name struck awe across the continent, a knight known as a dragon killer. Many elves still remembered that scene several months ago when he appeared in the wind forest and wounded Borg heavily. They thought that the battle had already ended, but his unexpected appearance added a factor of uncertainty to this battle. Your Highness. Pyrrhus, who almost jumped down from the mountain, looked at Irina with reddened eyes. She could finally heave a sigh of relief. Alex did come in the end. He did not let the princess's love for him down. Alex. Shirley let go of Pyrrhus's hand and looked at the man sitting on the griffin's back and Irina, who was in his embrace, as she smiled. Indeed, he was the only one in this world who was worthy of the princess. Sally looked at Irina who was held in the mysterious man's embrace, and her gaze landed on the man with the mask. Could he be that legendary man? A hero saving the damsel in distress from an army was indeed a sight to behold. Why does this figure look so familiar? Seems like I've seen him somewhere before? Sally squinted and started to ponder. She had heard Alex's name several times before, and even imagined what this man who had captured the princess's heart might look like, but what she could be certain of was that she had never seen him before. However, why did he seem so familiar? However, if he could bring the princess away, there would be a ray of hope for today's battle. The star domain was forcefully destroyed. Helena took a step backward. She looked at the purple-striped griffin coldly, but was not shocked. Alex, you still came. Borg's face twisted into a sinister smile. He waved his hand, and several figures dashed off in several directions. Why are you here? Irina looked at Meg in surprise. The way he wielded his sword just now showed that he definitely was in top form. Could he have recovered his powers? I only have 15 minutes, Meg said softly. That's fast. Irina pressed her lips together into a sweet smile. She thought that she would not get to see him again, but he still came. I think there's a need for me to show you my manly prowess. Mag raised his brow. This was a matter of his manly pride. Besides, 15 minutes wasn't fast. I'm here to bring all of you with me. Mag looked at Irina. Her pale and dusty face made his heart ache. All of us. Irina looked at the mountain peak. The night elves had already retreated to the mountain peak. After the long battle, there were less than 100 of them left, and almost everyone was injured. The elves began their last round of attack after a short rest. You can't bring so many people away with you. Irina shook her head. I might be big, but Helena and the others would not watch them bring everyone away without doing anything. Trust me, Mag said gently. The purple-striped griffin turned to head towards the mountain. It flapped its wings, and the elves climbing toward the mountain peak flew away like they were ants. Ding! A variable that would be a threat to the cultivation of the god of cookery detected. New mission: please kill the target within 24 hours, Borg. Mission reward: unlock roaming mission series and receive a mobile restaurant. Mission failed, -3 strength. Just then, the system's voice rang in Mag's head. Damn! Mag was taken aback. This was not within his plans. His plan was just to retreat without getting injured. The 400 thugs in suits were just to act as a deterrence, but the system suddenly gave him a mission to kill Borg. Although he hated Borg, the latter was, after all, a 10th-tier powerhouse. Although the system gave him 24 hours, to him, it was the same as having 15 minutes. Furthermore, 2 minutes had already passed. The griffin circled around the mountain peak, blowing the attacking elves away. Mag whispered to Irina, I'm going to kill Borg. I'm afraid it's the other way around, Irina said as she glanced at the calm Helena, and Borg who was dashing towards the mountain peak on horseback. If you want to kill, you need to have the awareness that you can be killed. Mag turned and placed Irina gently on the mountain peak before diving down on the purple-striped griffin towards Borg. His gaze became even more serious and focused. Now, Helena commanded coldly. She lifted the crystal ball in front of her overhead, and darkness loomed once again and slowly expanded towards Mag. At the same time, 4 elderly elves appeared behind Helena. They each held a magic caster's staff and were mumbling a chant. Their staffs glowed as terrifying magic waves started congregating. Behind Borg were 4 magic caster elves as well. They were also mumbling a chant, and flames appeared in the sky. Trees started sprouting from the ground, growing at an insane speed as the vine-like branches of the trees extended towards the sky. 10 10th-tier magic casters. This was just the beginning of the ambush. The night elves and Irina were just one of their targets. Alex was the main character for this ambush. On the mountain peak, Irina planted her magic caster's staff in a mountain rock, and she began humming softly. Bright rays of sun pierced through the darkness and landed on the golden crystal at the tip of the staff, transforming into a beam of light following the purple-striped griffin. What a large scale! It'll be awkward if we fail. Mag held the Tiandu sword with both hands, and his expression became very serious. That was almost all of the elves' 10th-tier magic casters. It was indeed a little beyond his expectations. Chapter 1262 Target confirmed dead. The purple-striped griffin opened its mouth, and a ball of purple lightning blasted a hole in the flaming sky instantaneously. It glided through the hole and suddenly climbed steeply upwards to avoid the tangling branches. It then accelerated to avoid the spells cast from all directions, and then suddenly dropped into a dive towards Borg. The darkness loomed once again, and the starry sky domain enveloped Mag. The sky seemed to have become miry. Just then, a holy light came from the mountain peak, tearing the darkness apart, following the purple-striped griffin like an amulet, and opening a path for it. To hell with you, Alex. Borg's face was filled with deathly darkness. He raised his black magic staff overhead, and a ferocious black tiger suddenly leaped out, and spread its black skeletal wings as it pounced towards the purple-striped griffin. This aura. Mag looked at the huge tiger with a pair of bone wings surrounded by a black aura and frowned. It was a very strong aura of death, and was not something a nature elf should have. To be able to make the system release a mission to kill him, and also affect the progress of the god of cookery cultivation system, it seemed as though Borg had received some unusual form of strength. Besides, he'd heavily wounded Borg, and Borg's breathing was very chaotic right now. It was strong at times and weak at times, and the fluctuations happened instantaneously. This was not normal at all. What Mag could be certain of was that Borg had become stronger than before. Magic morphing was commonly used by higher-tiered magic casters. That black tiger was of comparable size to the purple-striped griffin. It leaped towards the purple-striped griffin like a hungry tiger pouncing on a lamb. It attempted to tear Ozzy's wings apart with its sharp black claws as it opened its huge mouth to attack Ozzy's neck. Borg laughed sinisterly as though he could already see the purple-striped griffin and Alex being torn apart. Previously, he had been heavily wounded by the purple-striped griffin, which made him feel ashamed, but the god of death had healed him, and made him even stronger. Killing Alex and Irina would rid him of his biggest threats. This tiger of death came from the world of the dead, and could tear all its enemies apart before sucking their energy and strength to be used by him. He was going to pay him back multiple folds for the shame he had gone through. And after getting Alex's and Irina's strength, he would become the strongest in the Wind Forest, and that would set him on the path to conquering the Norland continent. It's such a strong aura of death. What on earth is Borg thinking of doing? Helena looked at that black tiger, and was equally uneasy and appalled. The other elves were also frightened and shocked when they saw such a sight. Mag held his sword in front of him with both hands. The holy light cast a golden glow on the silver blade. The energy in his body started circulating around intensely as he channeled it into his hands. The 10-meter sword projection rose as the holy light coated it with a layer of gold. It's useless. Go to hell! Borg howled sinisterly. The skeletal winged tiger let out a mighty roar and its eyes became blood red. The black skeletal wings retracted to the center like two sharp blades as they hacked towards Mag's slash. Mag chanted inside and slashed his sword forward. The skeletal winged tiger was still enormous in front of the 10-meter sword projection. The sharp bone wings exuded a fear-inducing glow with the aura of death surrounding it. It was not at all fearful of Mag's sword as it came slashing, continuing its attack on Mag and the purple-striped griffin without dodging. PSSST, the sword projection slashed into the skeletal winged tiger, and the black aura of death suddenly retreated like fire meeting water when it touched the sword projection which was covered in holy light. This was a very fast and very powerful slash. With the help of the holy light, the dense black aura of death retreated completely, and did not even slow the sword projection down. The sword projection very quickly landed on the skeletal winged tiger. Roar! The skeletal winged tiger let out a horrifying roar, and attempted to use its claws to stop the sword projection. However, it was too slow in comparison to the sword. The purple-striped griffin dashed forward, and the sword split the skeletal winged tiger into halves like a bamboo stem. The skeletal winged tiger, which was 100 meters long, suddenly disintegrated and fell down as blood rain, corroding the rocks and making holes in them as it landed. Borg spat out a mouthful of black blood. He held his chest and looked at Mag in disbelief as he exclaimed in shock, "No! Impossible!" The other elves were also astounded by this scene, both shocked by Alex's strength and fearful of Borg's terrifying aura and uncomfortable dark magic, which caused even the other great magic casters to stop casting their spells subconsciously. This aura doesn't belong to this world, right? Mag lifted his sword, and coldly said, "Then you really deserve to die." "No." Borg retreated in horror. He held his staff up high in an attempt to cast another spell. Within a flash of light, the sword had already split the staff in two, and split Borg's horrified face at the same time. Lord Borg is dead. Borg's army was all shocked when they saw Borg's head being split in two. Lord Borg was almighty to all the elves, but even with the 10 great magic casters working together, he was still killed so quickly. This man was horrifying. That's good too. A smile very quickly appeared in the corner of Helena's mouth. Borg was also an uncontrollable pawn. There was only one queen in the Wind Forest, but Borg wanted too much. After that, she stared at Mag. The stars shifted in her crystal ball, and the starry sky domain moved once again towards Mag as she coldly said, "Kill him." Why yes. The magic casters behind her had not recovered from the shock of Borg's instant death. They quickly continued their chant. On the mountain peak, the holy light disappeared all of a sudden. The pale Irina stumbled and held on to her staff for support. She watched Mag's back view and smiled proudly. My man indeed. Ding! Target confirmed dead. Congratulations on completing your mission. You have received your reward, a mobile restaurant, and have also unlocked the roaming mission series. Mission 1, the system's voice sounded in Mag's mind. However, Mag did not have the time to listen to the system go on and on. After confirming Borg's death, he quickly led the purple-striped griffin to turn around. 3 flaming meteors crashed on the spot he was standing in, and broke into numerous ricocheting stones, leaving 3 huge holes in their wake. Countless flaming birds started appearing from the burning sky, the trees that were growing at an insane speed started shooting out venomous spikes, and numerous meteors started crashing down from the black starry sky. The purple-striped griffin's speed started to slow down rapidly as it traveled through the starry sky domain. It could only dodge the continuous spells, and it was unable to find its direction out without the holy light. At the same time, the elven troops who took a rest started their final dash towards the mountain peak. After killing Borg, things had become sticky. System, if you're not going to do something, I'm gonna die. Mag cried out inside. No matter how powerful he was not a god, and he could not go against 9 10th tier magic casters. He was now trapped in their domain with no way out and no idea where the attack would come from. They are taking advantage of their numbers. How shameless! That I agree with. Just then, 2 elderly voices suddenly came from the sky. Chapter 1263 Playing with Fire. Lord of Fire, Krasu. Lord of Ice, Urian. Red Dragon. All the elves looked up, and some of the great magic casters very quickly exclaimed as they identified the 2 old men standing on the red dragon's back. There had always been 2 peaks in the magic caster's domain, representing the top in ice magic and fire magic. They were the lords of ice and fire, respectively. The 2 had fought with each other for their entire lives, but there was never a clear winner. However, there was no doubt that they were very powerful. Why would they suddenly appear here? The Red Dragon tribe might not be very strong, but they also had quite some 10th tier giant dragons. What was this Red Dragon doing here with Krasu and Urian? The elf magic casters who had almost driven Alex and Irina into a corner were bewildered. Helena looked up at them and was a little worried. It seemed as though today's ambush would not go as smoothly as she thought. It's Amy's masters. Pyrrhus, who got to the peak of the mountain, supported Irina and looked at the giant dragon and the 2 old men on its back as she exclaimed, "Is Boss and the others coming to save us?" Shirley, who was by their side, protecting them, was also surprised. She had seen for herself how powerful these 2 magic casters were. With their help, at least Alex would not be in such a passive position right now. Silly Pyrrhus! He's already here. Irina glanced at Pyrrhus. This little one was still kept in the dark. However, she was still a little surprised and touched when she saw Krasu and Urian. She really did not expect them to appear here. Krasu, Urian. Mag, who was dodging the spells in the starry sky domain, was also shocked when he heard their voices. They were not the reinforcement he'd called. That was totally unexpected. Little Irina, don't be afraid. We're here to save you, Krasua told Irina with a smile as he turned back. Urian turned his head back too, and saw that although Irina looked a little disheveled, she did not seem severely injured. He nodded slightly and looked coldly at Helena. "Old thing, beat that damn old lady up for me," Irina shouted out loudly with a smile. "Krasu, Urian, and the Fire Dragon tribe. What are you doing here? This is none of your business, so I hope you won't interfere. Otherwise, I will take it that you're going against the elf tribe." Helena shouted. "Forget about Krasu and Urian, where did that mere 9th tier fire dragon get the courage to interfere with the elves' internal affairs? So is that supposed to be something remarkable?" Krasu scoffed. "The last person who told us that was an ogre," Urian said coldly. "Then I guess it's nothing much," Krasu said with a smile. I was caught by them to be their ride. This has nothing to do with me. I don't want to be here, either," that fire dragon said with grievance when he finally found a chance to interject. As a 9th tier dragon, he was actually knocked unconscious in one blow, and locked up with a chain the entire night. The next morning, he was forced to fly towards the north, but when facing these two ruthless people who killed without batting an eyelid, he did not dare to show any sign of resistance. However, he did not want to cause the Red Dragon tribe to be in the elves' bad books, so he could only risk his life to make his stand. Helena's expression changed for the worse. She ignored the Red Dragon, and coldly continued, "How can you compare the elves to the ogres? If you don't want to face the Wind Forest's revenge, leave at this instant." "Helena, you're really full of nonsense. Your words are as long and smelly as your foot-binding cloth. Do you think the Wind Forest is a match for us?" Krasu pouted. After that, he lowered his head and told the Red Dragon under him, "Little Reddy, stay here obediently and wait for us to finish our fight. If you run away, I will go to the Dragon Islands to pick up a fight with your grandpa." "Yes," the Red Dragon responded as he froze on the spot while trembling with fear. "Alex, Grandpa is here to save you again." Krasu took a big step forward, and two spinning fireballs appeared under his foot immediately. They tore through the black starry sky domain and crashed on the ground. One of them sent a great magic caster, who was casting his spell, flying, and the flying blades that filled the sky disappeared instantaneously. He killed a great magic caster in a second. His close combat magic is so scary. The other elves were so shocked they all saw Krasu in a different light. At the same time, Urian waved his hand, and the mountain peak where the underground cavern was started freezing downwards rapidly from the middle of the mountain. The elven troops who were still attempting to rush up to the peak were immediately frozen into white ice sculptures. The frost continued spreading in the 100-meter radius of the mountain peak before stopping. "Run!" The elves were all horrified as they turned back and ran for their life. "Grandpa?" Mag was speechless. Even though Krasu was at the age where he could be his grandpa, wasn't it a little too much to do this to a friend? However, with the starry sky domain torn and a great magic caster rid of, Mag was suddenly relieved of a lot of pressure. He slashed the branch wrapping around Ozzy's foot, and dodged a group of flaming birds dashing towards him. After that, he went for a great magic caster closest to him. "Kill them!" Helena shouted. The great magic casters quickly took a few steps back. At the same time, they started to readjust their formation to take on Krasu and Urian. Although they only had 3 opponents, those 3 posed a very big threat to them. The sky full of flaming birds turned to attack Krasu. They formed in midair a 100-meter flaming giant who raised his gargantuan fist, hurling it towards Krasu. "Playing with fire!" Krasu scoffed. He raised his right hand at the flaming giant. The flaming giant suddenly froze. A fire magic caster's face reddened as he held his staff tightly, but the giant nonetheless remained still. This made him feel awfully small. "Explode," Krasu said in a relaxed way. The 100-meter-tall flaming giant suddenly exploded. Flames flew everywhere, burning the giant trees that grew crazily into ashes. The elven fire magic caster and the wood magic caster both turned pale as they felt a heavy blow emotionally. On the other side, Urian was in a face-off with Helena. An ice phoenix soared through the starry sky domain, turning the burning stars into frost. Tens of burning meteors chased the ice phoenix closely behind, trying to turn it into crushed ice. With Krasua and Urian joining in the fight, Mag was saved from the seemingly hopeless battle. However, with 9 great magic casters on their side, their enemy could still get a hold on the situation, and form an attack on Mag and the others once again. A golden dragon and a frost dragon flew over from the south. On the dragon's backs stood 200 thugs in suits. The high priest pushed his sunglasses up, pointed ahead, and said, "There's an intense battle ahead. I can feel the power of 10th tier powerhouses. That should be our destination." The purple-striped griffin swooped around in the starry sky domain, but every time it got close to a magic caster, it would be forced to retreat by a collective burst of fire. Krasua was fighting 3 against 1. He started breathing heavily. It was still a little beyond him to fight in a battle of this level at his age. On the other side, the Ice Phoenix was finally hit by a meteor after destroying more than half of the stars in the starry sky domain. Helena took a step back. Her face was pale. There were barely any stars left in the crystal ball. However, she smiled coldly as she looked at Urian. The elf tribe wouldn't be able to have a standing in the Norland continent if their powerhouses weren't able to tackle these 3. "Kill them!" Helena commanded apathetically. After gathering, the hundreds of 8th and 9th tiers would close in on the surrounded trio, and when victory was close at hand, these 8th and 9th tiers would be the final blow to break them. Sally, who was standing nearby behind Helena, clenched her fists once again. Krasua and Urian's appearance did make her heave a sigh of relief, but the situation was still turning against them. Spells flew in the sky towards the trio like fireworks. The 8th, 9th, and 10th tiers magic spells were just like child's play to them, but with an adequate number of children attacking insanely, even a giant could be killed. The elves' eyes lit up. This was the epitome of the elves' might. When hundreds of 8th and 9th tiers worked together, they could crush anyone, no matter how powerful, into pieces. Helena, that old witch. She is really well prepared. Irina knitted her brows together. She had already exhausted all her powers, so she could not be of any help to them. This is a little of a hassle. Urian stepped on a sprout to push it back into the ground fearlessly. Mag looked at the spells flying in the sky and frowned a little. He could see the clock ticking down at the last minute. He was running out of time. His reinforcements should be arriving now, right? Roar! Just then, a roar echoed, and a giant dragon and a frost dragon appeared above the mountain peak. For the glory of Lantist! Charge! The high priest raised the crystal ball in his hand up high and shouted loudly in Lantist's language. A wave of sea started pouring out from the crystal ball, flooding the spells in the sky. Hundreds of thugs in suits, each with a trident in his hand, jumped down from the dragons' backs. They surfed the waves towards the hundreds of elves fearlessly. At the tip of the wave stood 9 10th tier powerhouses. They started casting their spells and projected them into the high priest's crystal ball. The crystal ball glowed, and a water shield appeared in front of the trio in an instant. The elves' spells exploded when they crashed into the water shield like fireworks. The water shield shook violently, and it dissolved into mist after taking its final attack. Who are these people? Everyone suddenly watched these oddly dressed people who were wearing something black on their faces. However, they had to admit that with their black suits, black sunglasses, and cold expressions, this group of thugs in suits made quite a lasting impression with their appearance. In addition, that water shield which could easily block all the spells made the elves even more shocked. Where did this group of powerhouses come from? The number of 10th tier powerhouses they had was comparable to the number of 8th tier and 9th tier powerhouses the Wind Forest had. Who are these people? Helena's expression changed drastically. Victory was right in front of their eyes, but that group of unknown powerhouses had to appear at this time. She was certain that they had nothing to do with the goblins at the border. If the goblins had such might, they would not be so cowardly. These people? Irina was also bewildered. Although they looked like humans, they were not from the Roth Empire. Moreover, they seemed to be on their side. Ferris looked up at the sky. When she saw the golden dragon and frost dragon, she excitedly said, "It's Mia, Gina, and Miss Elizabeth." "It's them." Shirley nodded. When she saw the thugs in suits, her eyes lit up. They must be from Lantist. It seems as though he planned this as well. Although Irina did not know what Lantist was, she had already made her judgment. The Lantist thugs in suits went for a head-on clash with the elven powerhouses. The waves disrupted the formation of the elven powerhouses. Before the elves could even exercise their magic, they were knocked unconscious in the water. Both sides were of comparable strength and numbers, but after the elves at the front met with resistance, their will started to crumble. When someone shouted "Run!", the hundreds of elves threw their armor aside and scurried away. "Kill those who run away!" Helena shouted coldly as she crushed an 8th-tier elf. The fleeing elves were startled, and started running back towards Helena. Meanwhile, the other great magic casters gave up on attacking the trio, and turned to stop the thugs in suits. When the waves finally stopped, the place was in a mess. The elves looked warily at the thugs in suits as they panted heavily. These strangers were too scary. If the 10th-tier magic casters had not given them some cover, there might not have been many of them left. "Who are you? Why are you attacking my tribe?" Helena stared intently at the high priest, who was floating in mid-air. Since both sides had a similar number of people, and she was not able to tell which tribe he belonged to, this might be a tough battle. The high priest's brows knitted slightly together as he turned to look at Gina, who was beside him. Gina was also confused. Although she had been learning some basic phrases from Anna and Amy, she could only understand half of the daily conversations, so she did not really understand what that elf was talking about. She thought for a while, and pointed to the mountain peak as she loudly said, "We're here to fetch them. Go away." The most important thing was that Helena still had no idea where they came from. She would definitely have heard of them if they were from the Norland continent. Could they be Alex's army? A dangerous thought surfaced in her mind. Alex had gone missing for 3 years, and no one knew where he went or whom he met. It did not seem impossible to build such a large force within 3 years. What she could be certain of now was that they were here for Irina. They wanted to bring the night elves with them. Helena was overwhelmed with uneasiness. Although she still had 9 great magic casters, hundreds of 8th and 9th tier powerhouses, and more than 20,000 elite troops, if the other party were to pit their all against them, the elf tribe would suffer heavy losses even if they were to win. The elves had already lost their queen and Borg, while Irina was clearly a rebel. If they were to suffer another heavy loss from today's battle, the elves might not be able to fend for themselves should the goblins at the border decide to attack the Wind Forest. Besides, the peace talks would begin soon. The elves would lose their bargaining power if their strength were to fall greatly. That was completely unacceptable to Helena. Helena looked at Irina, who was at the mountain peak in the distance. She was unwilling to let her go because that would spell future troubles. However, it did not seem like she would have the chance to get rid of her today. Right now, she had to prioritize the elves' interest. "This is?" Sally looked at the thugs in suits curiously. The way they dressed was very similar to Mag's style, and he was the only one who would be able to come up with such an odd yet impressive look. However, she had never seen these customers in Mamie restaurant. In spite of that, she was still relieved to see all these people defending the mountain peak. It seemed like today's battle would be ending soon. "Wow, I didn't think Boss Mag would still have this up his sleeve. How surprising!" Krasu was also quite shocked to see the thugs in suits, but when he saw Yabimia and Elizabeth, he knew whom they belonged to. Now, he would not need to do anything anymore, so he went back to the red dragon's back. Urian also kept his staff. They had already achieved their goal in coming here. There wouldn't be a need for them from now on. Mag got the purple-striped griffin to fly higher. He had already used up all 15 minutes. He was suddenly assailed by a sense of exhaustion. Luckily, he had his mask on, and was sitting on the griffin, so it was not obvious. He was very pleased with the appearance of the 400 thugs in suits from Lantist. The visual effect of them arriving on waves was also very impactful, and they successfully used it to their favor to turn the situation around. Mag wanted to kill Helena, but he was not strong enough. 15 minutes was really too short. Meanwhile, Urian and Krasa were obviously here to save Irina, so it wouldn't be realistic to get them to combine their powers to kill Helena. As for the brave soldiers of Lantist, Mag had promised that he would not force them to do anything dangerous. If they were to pit themselves against the Wind Forest, both sides would definitely suffer heavy losses. Besides, the Lantist warriors might be very powerful in the sea, but once they were on land, without sufficient water, their strength would decrease as time went by. Mag rode on the purple-striped griffin and looked down at Helena and the other elves as he said, "Helena, this is the last chance for you to retreat. If you don't wish to go, I believe the goblins will clear up the mess, and while they are at it, they can also take the Wind Forest down." The expressions on the elves' faces changed. They'd almost forgotten that there were still goblins on the border several kilometers away. "High Priestess, we have suffered very heavy losses today. For the sake of the Wind Forest's future, let's just retreat for today," said a magic caster with eyes filled with horror. Helena's expression turned cold. She gazed deeply at Irina, and announced, "I will remember this. One day, I will pay it back tenfolds." "Retreat!" Helena commanded. The elves started retreating, but without the confidence from when they first started. They threw their armor aside and started fleeing northwards in fear. Sally looked towards the mountain peak. At the same time, Shirley looked over. Their eyes met. Sally nodded slightly before turning to retreat with Helena. The tens of thousands of troops retreated in a flash, leaving only corpses, frozen statues, and the aftermath of the battle. "We've won!" The hundreds of remaining night elves on the mountain peak cheered at the top of their lungs. Although they were exhausted from giving their all for the battle, they were still very excited. Although they had received help from outside, they still claimed victory, and that was significant in the Night Elves' rebellion history. "We won!" Irina smiled. However, when she saw the dead and frozen elves, she still felt a little upset. In war, the ones sacrificed were always the soldiers at the lowest level, while the oppressors would still be living well. Mag heaved a sigh of relief as he watched the elves disappear into the distance. If Helena had carried on with the battle without any care, he would not have known how many of them would be able to leave this place alive. This outcome had exceeded his expectations, and that made him very satisfied. Ozzy turned around and flew towards the mountain peak. Two of the great magic casters from Lantist blocked his way nervously. "Gina, he's one of us," Elizabeth called out to Gina. She looked at Alex with complicated feelings. She did not expect to see him again here, but some questions were destined to remain unasked because the female lead for today was Irina. Gina quickly got the two magic casters to step aside, and looked curiously at the strange man sitting on the strange ride. "Is that Alex? Wow, he looks so cool with the mask on. Also, his ride looks awesome. It's purple and it has awesome looking stripes." Yabimiya had turned into a fangirl as her eyes lit up with idolization. Mag reached the peak of the mountain and reached his hand out towards Irina as he said, "Come with me." Irina looked at Mag and smiled. However, she did not take his hand. She shook her head gently, and said, "They need me. I can't leave yet." Mag looked at the elderly night elves. Almost everyone had injuries. He was reminded of how they fended their enemies off time and again even though they were 10 times their number. He nodded, and said, "All right, I'll wait for you." Mag patted Ozzy's back gently. The purple-striped griffin flapped its wings and flew towards the west. However, apart from the tiredness, he didn't feel any other side effects. This could be considered as the system's unique characteristic. He let Ozzy bring him back to the 9th peak where he'd split up with Gina and the rest. He instructed it to go back to fetch Irina and the rest before finding a place to change his clothes back again. He found that white-head eagle, which was shivering on the ground, and lay on its warm back for a rest. The Night Elves' siege was resolved perfectly, and it even went much smoother than he had expected. However, before he killed Borg, he had sensed an unusual aura and power from his body, and could feel the suppression effect that Irina's holy light obviously had on that aura. That was why he could kill that skeletal winged tiger so easily. System, what did Borg have on his body? Why did you want me to strike him down? Mag asked in his heart. This was the first time that the system issued a mission to kill, and the other party didn't seem to have any connection with cooking. The existence of this person had affected the quality of the rice in the cultivation area of the wind forest seriously, and could also potentially affect the yield of the shiitake mushrooms. He could contaminate the fertile areas in the wind forest. Although this system has already implemented systematic governance, this person had to be removed completely as a contamination source. Contamination source. Mag frowned, still confused about the system's words. That was a black fog that doesn't belong to this world, and is extremely corrosive to any living being. According to this system's detection, this homologous black fog has already appeared in multiple locations on this continent, and is expanding rapidly. It is threatening the many products of this system's numerous farms. Even though this system had done multiple rounds of cleaning, this black fog is still very stubborn, and signs of drug resistance have appeared. To protect farms and pastures, the host must go to clear the black fog. At the same time, the mission of traveling around the continent is initiated. Aren't you hopeless? As a system, you can't even protect your own farms and pastures. Mag pursed his lips, but he was wary of that black fog that appeared suddenly. Stuff that made the system helpless had to be difficult to eradicate. The situation was tense earlier, so Mag hadn't looked at the rewards in detail. Since he was resting now, he clicked open the reward that wasn't announced completely then. Mobile restaurant upgrade. Flight thrusters are added, and the restaurant can move by flight. In flight, the maximum speed of Mach 5 can be reached, the underground cavern. The elves had retreated, and the merfolk of Lantist had also stepped down from their battle mode. They had regrouped, and were waiting for their air transport home. "Thanks, old fellows. Your drinks will be on me next time," Irina said to Krasu and Urian on the dragon's back. She was grateful and touched. "I will definitely order a lot of drinks. However, this boy Alex is rather rude. He simply went off without saying goodbye." Krasu chuckled. "Do you think everyone is as shameless as you?" Urian sneered in a hoarse voice, but he was looking at Irina with a gentle gaze and a smile on his cold face. "Hey! Looks like you are looking for a fight with me," Krasu said with an unfriendly look. "Do I need to choose a date to squash you?" Urian smirked and asked instead. "Misters, can we go back now?" the red dragon said, feeling an urge to cry. It was afraid that the two big bosses would start fighting on his back. He would really not survive. The two of them lowered their heads and glanced at the red dragon at the same time. The red dragon hushed up instantly. Aggrievement flashed in its eyes as it said, "Do as you please. There's no need to pay any attention to me. I see, old man, you'd better ask Irina if she still needs those fellows that you froze. They will really be dead shortly," Krasu said as he glanced at those elves who were frozen, pursing his lips. "They are not dead." Happiness flashed through Irina's eyes. "About 1,000 elves. They're still breathing." Urian nodded. "Then, please thaw them," Irina quickly said. "But, princess, they had come to attack us. Isn't it bad for us to release them? Ferris asked Irina, feeling a little confused. The other night elves were perplexed too. Hundreds of their companions' lives were lost before they won this battle, but now they were going to revive these enemies. What is the belief of us, the night elves? It is to unite all forces to overthrow the rule of the exploiting class and build a new free kingdom, Irina said to all the night elves. And all these are the elven soldiers at the base. Most of them are slaves that were caught by the demons and sent back to the forest. In this war, they, too, are victims like us. Meanwhile, those exploiters are still watching this war from above, and not caring how many lowly elves would die in this war. What the night elves need to do is not massacring the wind forest. Instead, our motive should be to overthrow the class rulers. We will only resort to violence against the oppressors to gain the support of the lowly elves. If we massacred these soldiers today, then would any soldiers join us willingly in the future? Would any elf trust us again? The night elves fell into a silence as they pondered Irina's words thoughtfully. Many of them were caught by the demons, and went through all kinds of torture. They weren't picked to join the army only because they were old. They became slaves instead, so they knew about the difficulty of the lowly elves' survival. The princess is right. The young elves are the future of the wind forest. If these young elves join us willingly, then our revolutionary numbers will get bigger, and we will have more hope to overthrow the wind forest's rule, a night elf who lost an arm said loudly. The other night elves nodded. The night elves had lost many in this siege. If new blood could be injected, it would be a good thing for the night elves. Urian waved his wand after seeing that they had reached a consensus. Those human form ice sculptures crumbled instantly, and those elves who were pale from the cold fell to the ground one by one, panting with fear. The elites of the wind forest were all mobilized, yet they were defeated. Furthermore, it was a defeat that they had fled disorderly and left them behind. And those elves who were knocked unconscious by the Lantistines were also awakened by throwing ice water over them. They looked at those scary men in black and the night elves surrounding them, and swiftly understood what happened. Their faces were equally pale. You guys don't have to panic, I won't kill you. Irina stood at the edge of the peak, and said to the elves, the wind forest has abandoned you. To them, you all are already dead. Now, you people have two choices. First, join us, the night elves, and overthrow the rule of the wind forest together with us. We will fight for the rest of our lives in order to build a free kingdom. Second, leave on your own. Right now, Chaos City is open to all elves and providing asylum and protection. You will have a peaceful and stable life there. Although they were over 30 kilometers away from the battleground, those powerful magic waves earlier still made him feel shocked. If Alex was the only person who came to help the night elves, why were there such powerful magic waves? Unless the night elves wanted to annihilate Alex. The author wrote the night elves. It should be the wind forest as well? Even so, such an intense clash of magic waves shouldn't have appeared. However, on the Norland continent now, who else was still willing to antagonize the whole elf species for the night elves? Right at this moment, a goblin popped his head out of a cave, and loudly shouted, "Chief, the allied forces of the wind forest are retreating in defeat." The wind forest is retreating. The goblin chief was shocked. How could this happen? All the goblin soldiers were shocked to hear that too. The wind forest had sent 20,000 to 30,000 allied troops to annihilate the night elves, which were made up of less than 3,000 old, weak, and helpless elves. How could the wind forest have retreated in defeat with such a distinct difference in strength? Besides Alex, who else came? The goblin chief swiftly asked. This outcome was too abnormal, and it would definitely cause an upheaval on the Norland continent. The Lord of Fire, Krasu, the Lord of Ice, Urian and, that goblin was flustered, but he didn't know how to put it. I didn't expect the Lord of Fire and the Lord of Ice to come. The goblin chief was slightly taken aback. These two great magic casters' powers were among the best of the powerhouses on the continent. However, even with them assisting the night elves, it was still difficult to hold back the elite forces of the elf species. How could the elf species have been defeated? The goblin chief suddenly realized something, and nervously asked. And what? It seemed like a certain force had gotten involved in this battle and changed the outcome. And a group of mysterious people suddenly appeared. They were all wearing black clothes, and their eyes were covered with two black discs. They descended from the sky and defeated the elven elite troops crushingly. Then, the elven allied forces began to retreat to the wind forest. That goblin was trying very hard to describe what he had seen earlier. What the F***ck is this species? The goblin chief was confused. I don't know, either. They don't look like humans, demons, or elves. They are definitely not demons and trolls. The goblin had an expression showing he felt maligned. If he could see what species they were, why would he need to describe them like this? Where did this mysterious force come from? They are so terrifying that they could defeat the elves head-on, the goblin chief was shocked. The other species wouldn't get involved in the internal affairs of the elf species lightly, otherwise, it was equivalent to declaring war on them. And Chaos City had specified clearly that they wouldn't get involved in this battle. This power was indeed very mysterious. They managed to hide themselves without leaving any trace on the Norland continent for so long. If they suddenly decided to invade the goblins, they wouldn't have a fighting chance at all. He immediately ordered, "Go and investigate, where does this power come from?" Yes. A few goblins left with their orders, and jumped into holes in the ground near them. After the ice melted away, the group of captured elven soldiers looked at each other with hesitation and struggle in their eyes. Going to Chaos City and living a peaceful life, or joining the night elves and fighting for freedom was not an easy choice to make for those who had lost their pride and freedom for many years like them. Irina stood at the edge of the mountain peak. She didn't hurry them to decide, but she looked at them quietly, and waited for them to make their own choice instead. My daughter was murdered by those animals, I want to avenge her with my own hands. A middle-aged elf walked out and knelt on one knee. He loudly proclaimed, I want to join the night elves and follow the lead of your highness to overthrow the wind forest's rule. A lad knelt on one knee with clenched teeth, and said, my parents were killed by those demon mercenaries because they wanted to protect me. I want to join the night elves to avenge them. I want to join the night elves and fight for freedom. One after another, elves stood out and knelt on down one knee, choosing to join the night elves. Fight for freedom. The rousing slogan was reverberating throughout the mountains. All the elves had chosen to join the night elves, be it for revenge or freedom. They eventually chose to fight back. Fight for freedom. Irina also raised her right fist up in the air. Is this Princess Irina? She's so beautiful, and her presence is so powerful, just like a regnant queen. Yabimiya looked at Irina with astonishment and envy. Even after she became a golden dragon, she could never acquire such a presence. Elizabeth remained silent as she, too, looked at Irina with envy in her eyes. When they were still trying hard to practice, she was already standing in the top stratum of the whole continent, and possessed the courage to challenge a powerful species. Princess Irina and Lord Alex are really so matching. I wonder if I will ever get the chance to see them again. It was so romantic when they reached out to each other again. My maiden heart, Yabimiya began to fantasize romantically again. This is simply too awesome. Babla was looking at Irina with amazement. They were both princesses, but she could feel the difference between her and this beautiful and powerful elf princess right now. Is the Moon Nation equal? Does it also need a freedom revolution? Babla propped her chin up and sunk deep in thought. This woman is indeed terrifying. Should I make my exit now? Camilla looked at Irina with fear, suddenly recalling the scenario that she was sent flying away with a stool. But what was she doing there back then? What was the relationship between Meg and her? Let's go. The little girl has already grown up, and she doesn't need us two old fogies anymore. Krasu chuckled with gratification. Let's go, Urian said coldly. Please take a seat, misters. We will leave right now. The red dragon was relieved, and quickly flapped its wings and fled. I will treat you to drinks the next time we meet. Irina waved her hands and chuckled. We will be waiting for it, the voice went away together with the red dragon. And to all of you, I thank you all for coming to our aid on behalf of the Night Elves, Irina said to the Lantistines, Yabimiya and the gang with gratitude, turning toward them. Please don't mention it. We came to save Firis and Shirley. They are our friends. Yabimiya waved her hands, feeling very flattered. She said, furthermore, it was Boss who came up with the idea. Boss is really too kind. He actually went through so much trouble to rescue me. Firis looked very touched. Thank goodness, I am prettier than them. Hey? Isn't this that bat he had bound up back then? What's she doing here? Could they have developed feelings for each other? Irina's gaze stopped on Camilla. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I've been discovered. Camilla was shocked, and felt uneasy instantly. Was she going to be embarrassed in front of so many people? Irina retrieved her gaze back from Camilla. She didn't feel that her status was threatened. After all, Mag couldn't defeat her in a fight. If he really dared to have thoughts, ho ho. Don't mention it. Gina shook her head on behalf of the Lantistines. She spoke a few words to the high priest after she saw those night elves who were seriously injured. Then, she asked Irina, do you need help? Healing. Yabimiya quickly helped to translate when she saw Irina looking rather perplexed. Gina doesn't speak the common tongue very well. However, she should be asking if you need help to treat those wounded elves. If possible, please. Irina's eyes lit up. She had exhausted all her power, and couldn't execute healing magic. Gina understood Irina's reply, and told the high priest a few words. The high priest nodded slightly before tossing the crystal ball in his hands out. Streams of icy blue water flowed out of the crystal ball, and washed all over the night elves. The blood and dirt on their bodies were cleaned instantly. The arrows and rocks that were embedded in their bodies were removed, and their horrible wounds began to heal in front of their eyes. In the time of a few breaths, the wounds of the 1,000-odd night elves had already healed. Although the missing body parts couldn't be regrown, the pain was all gone, and there was relief on all the elves' faces. Thank you very much. Irina thanked them sincerely. The high priest said a few words to Gina. This is our promise to Mr. Mag. If you really want to express your gratitude, say it to him, Gina said with a smile. I will thank him properly. A smile also appeared on Irina's face. We should be going now. Gina turned and looked at Yabimiya and Elizabeth. Lantist shouldn't be overly exposed. Firis, Shirley, are you two coming back to Mamie restaurant with us? Yabimiya asked. Anna brought you up a couple of times. She should be missing you, Yabimiya said to Shirley. Shirley's lips moved. She looked at Irina's back and shook her head eventually. Although Firis was little tempted, she, too, shook her head with conviction as she looked at Irina. Irina said to both Shirley and Firis, you two go ahead first. I will go to Chaos City to look for you. The night elves will rest and grow in Chaos City. Firis and Shirley's eyes lit up when they heard her. In this case, could they go back to work at Mamie restaurant again? Yabimiya and Elizabeth transformed back into giant dragons, and flew to the south with the Lantistine warriors, Firis and Shirley. And Camilla swiftly grabbed Babla and caught up. It was too dangerous to stay behind alone. She regretted coming today. She hadn't got to do anything, and had instead attracted unnecessary attention. Even if she liked pretty girls, and Irina was indeed very beautiful, she was simply too powerful, and Camilla preferred to be the one in charge. After everyone had left, Irina said to all the night elves, the night elves are still not powerful enough. We need to find a safer place to grow stronger, so I decided to bring the night elves southward and integrate into Chaos City. We will establish a new base in Chaos City, and wait for the chance to counterattack the Wind Forest. Chief, the mysterious people had left on dragons' backs. We don't know where they've gone. The 1,000-odd night elves are traveling southwards. Do we need to stop them? 2 pieces of information swiftly reached the goblin chief. There's no need to continue tracking the mysterious people, the goblin chief ordered in a deep voice after pondering for a moment. We don't want to provoke them. Give the night elves 1,000 good horses for their travel southward. In the Mamie restaurant, Amy, who was hugging Ugly Duckling, worriedly asked, "Big Sister Zixie, when are father and the rest coming back? Will they be in danger as they are going to fight the bad guys?" Anna, who was laying her head on the counter, sat up straight and also looked at Zixie nervously. "Don't worry. Boss Mag and the rest will be okay. They will be coming back soon," Zixie said gently, but there was also a hint of worry in her eyes. Although she didn't know what Boss Mag and the rest had gone to do, it seemed to be a dangerous affair. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left both the little ones behind at the restaurant. "Don't worry, Anna. Father will bring Big Sister Shirley and the rest back." Amy walked over to Anna and held her hand gently. Meow. Ugly Duckling, too, extended its fat paw and laid it on Anna's hand. "Ugly Duckling, your fat paw is too heavy," Amy said disdainfully. Anna smiled as she looked at Ugly Duckling's fat little pink paw. Mag, who had been resting on the back of the white-head eagle for a long time, flipped over. He felt some of his strength had returned to his body after chewing on a few pieces of American ginseng. Looking at the time, they should be heading back soon, so he leaped down from the white-head eagle, which was so terrified now. He stroked the white-head eagle's head to pacify it. Shortly after, a golden and a silver giant dragon appeared in the sky. "Boss, we did it. We got Ferris and Shirley back," Yabimiya said as she landed on the mountain and let Ferris and Shirley off. "Thank you, boss," Ferris said to Mag with a blush. "Thank you." Shirley expressed her gratitude to Mag too. They couldn't have left the underground cavern alive if the restaurant's people hadn't arrived in time. "We are all family. I'm glad that you all came back." Mag waved his hands with a smile. Then, he gratefully said to the merfolk's high priest, "Thank you all for your help. Mr. Mag is being too polite. This is our promise." The high priest nodded slightly. The merfolk only had a few soldiers who suffered some minor injuries on this mission. Mag's request wasn't overboard, and was much easier than he had expected. "Mia, Elizabeth. Please send them back to Lantist first," Mag continued to the 2 of them. 2 giant dragons flew toward the southwest, and only Mag, Ferris, Shirley, Bablat and Camilla were left on the mountain top. "This white-head eagle can only take 2 people. Who is going to sit with me?" Mag asked all the ladies. Me. Bablat, who was carried back all the way and frozen stiff, crawled onto the back of the white-head eagle by herself, and settled in the front seat before exhaling a breath of cold air. "You read it too." Roland strode in. He closed the door after seeing Michael and the missive in his hands. How could that happen? Where did that group of mysterious people come from? They actually pushed back the Wind Forest. Michael was still in disbelief. It couldn't have been done even if Chaos City had used all its high-end combat power. What made him even more shocked was that Chaos City didn't have any information regarding such an extremely powerful force. They didn't even know it existed before this event. The information received by the Grey Temple is more complete. Roland took out a secret missive, and passed it to Michael before saying, "Alex did in fact go to the underground cavern to rescue the Night Elves. The Wind Forest was prepared for that, and they had 10 great magic casters ready to attack Alex. They wanted to kill him together with Irina. And after Alex struck Borg down and was surrounded, Krasua and Urian joined the battle. After that, the group of mysterious people appeared. Under the leadership of 10 great magic casters, they defeated the powerful allied forces of the Wind Forest, and declared that they had come to rescue the Night Elves. Urien and Krasu have always had a great relationship with Irina. They almost wanted to take her as their disciple. I just didn't expect that they would go against the Wind Forest, Michael said, feeling a little surprised. Although these two old fellows are old, they haven't changed the way they do things. Furthermore, the two of them are together now, it's enough to make any forces wary of them. They are a time bomb in Chaos City too. We need to pay attention to them. Roland nodded, feeling a little troubled. Let's put Krasu and Urien aside. Where did those mysterious people come from? The sudden appearance of such a powerful species right before the renegotiation of the peace treaty is without a doubt going to make matters worse. Michael furrowed his eyebrows tightly. Although there were a lot more details of the battle in this secret missive, they still didn't have an accurate judgment on the identity of those mysterious people. We still need some time to investigate this matter. However, the report did mention that these mysterious people went into the battle on the backs of one golden dragon and one frost dragon. Maybe we could investigate from this direction. Roland shook his head slightly. Although this incident was rather bizarre, it still had a clue for them to investigate. Apart from that, what do you think about the Night Elves moving southwards? Borg is dead. Irina had set up the Night Elves to defy the Wind Forest publicly, and even defeated the Wind Forest in this underground cavern siege. The elf species' constitution is greatly undermined, so they would most probably choose to maintain the current situation in the renegotiation, and focus on exterminating the Night Elves and recovering their power, Roland said after some pondering. I think we should accept the Night Elves into the city secretly, and provide them with the necessary assistance. The Night Elves getting stronger could help to absorb the desire of the Wind Forest to expand. This will be good for the peace of the Norland continent. Helena is too extreme in the way she does things. She forced the Wind Forest to change into a feudal kingdom abruptly, and made the elves fight for power and interests just like humans. It will also be a good thing if Irina's Night Elves could succeed. Michael nodded. The Roth Empire. The king and the ministers were discussing state matters in the assembly room. The second prince, Josh, was among them, but he was distracted, and there was a hint of frustration visible between his eyebrows. The Wind Forest's siege of the Night Elves was giving him a headache. Although he maintained his mail communication with Helena and Borg throughout, he couldn't get them to promise not to hurt Irina or hand her over to him. Moreover, today was the day the Wind Forest was going to launch their final combined attack on the Night Elves. Even though he had promised Borg that he would support him to become the Elven King if he let Irina live and sent her to him, he didn't receive any reply from Borg. Neither did he know how the situation was now. He would have gone to the Wind Forest personally if the king had not made him stay. A guard strode to the entrance, and respectfully said, "Your Majesty, there's an urgent report." "Send it in." King Andre received the secret missive and started reading it. He let out a smothered sound of wonder after a moment. The courtiers were all looking at one another as they wondered what made the king so shocked, but no one dared to ask a word about it. Josh was also looking at Andre nervously. He had a premonition that this missive had something to do with the Night Elves and Irina. Andre only put down the missive after some time, and said to all the courtiers, the Wind Forest's attack on the Night Elves was pushed back. The assembly room erupted into a loud commotion following a brief silence. Although all the courtiers tried to control their emotions, they still couldn't hide the shock that they felt. The difference in power between the Wind Forest and the Night Elves was just like the giant dragon and the ant. They had talked about this previously, and the courtiers weren't interested in the topic, as there was almost no doubt about the outcome. They all said the Wind Forest was going to annihilate the Night Elves completely by today. But, the outcome now seemed to have given them a tight slap. How is that possible? The Prime Minister was in disbelief. So, this means Irina is alive. Josh was ecstatic. Although he was also equally shocked by this outcome, it had already far exceeded his expectations. Alex killed Borg, Andrei continued. The assembly room quieted down instantly. All the ministers were taken aback by Alex's great power, but they controlled their emotions and remained silent. For this period of time, Alex had been a constant taboo in the Roth Empire's court. No one was able to deny his strength and greatness. However, the past pride of the Roth Empire and the number one in all military disciplines didn't belong to the Roth Empire anymore. He could even be standing against the Empire. Furthermore, the Elves were the firm ally of the Roth Empire, and Borg was the chief commander of the Elves. Borg dying in the hands of Alex today was also a loss to the Roth Empire. Did Alex save her again? This fellow is as hateful as ever. Josh clenched his fists. This outcome was what he dreaded the most, even more than Irina dying in the battle. Besides Alex, Urian and Krasu appeared too. And a group of powerful mysterious people, Andrei said to Josh calmly. Powerful mysterious people. All the courtiers were shocked that the king used the word powerful to describe them. Who on earth were these mysterious people? Andrei placed the secret missive on the table. In a low voice, he said, the outcome is unexpected, but it didn't affect the Roth Empire too much. Let's investigate where those mysterious people come from. Maybe there are still things that we don't know in this world. Chief, the Night Elves are also elves. Will they be even harder to handle than the Wind Forest if they become more powerful? A goblin asked as he watched the Night Elves retreating backs. We, goblins, and the elves have been neighbors for the past 1,000 years. This neighbor had only turned bad in the recent 100 years, so it was all that old hag Helena's fault. If Irina could make the elves go back to who they were, it would only be a good thing for us goblins. The goblin chief shook his head with a smile as he watched the night elves leave. With Alex and that mysterious force's support, Irina's counterattack against the Wind Forest would perhaps begin soon. The goblins could gain a potential ally by helping them in their time of need. With horses to ride, the night elves' speed increased a lot. Howl. Right at this moment, a loud cry appeared over their heads, and a purple-striped griffin hovered above the night elves' caravan as it locked its sight on Irina in the lead. Ozzy. Irina looked at the purple-striped griffin, feeling rather surprised. Captain Ashley came forward, and smilingly said, "Please go ahead, Your Highness. I will lead the Night Elves to Chaos City and find a place to set up base." Irina looked at Ashley, who was a loyal captain with very exceptional talents at managing the army and a 9th-tier power. Her status in the Night Elves was only below hers. "Good. I will go and look for you after you reach Chaos City." Irina nodded, and leaped to a giant rock at the roadside from the horseback. The purple-striped griffin dove down, and landed next to the giant rock. It extended its wing to the rock to let Irina walk over easily. "Little Ozzy, come and let me stroke your head," Irina said smilingly as she wasn't in a hurry to get on the griffin's head. "Ow!" Ozzy shrugged subconsciously and howled as it looked at Irina nervously. "You won't die if you let me pet you. Why are you so peculiar?" Irina's voice turned cold. "Or, you think you are already too good for me to pet your head?" "Ow!" The purple-striped griffin surrendered instantly, and poked its head over to let Irina torture it. Even though it wasn't willing at first, when Irina's hand was placed onto Ozzy's head, the griffin with a 100m wingspan began to roll around on the ground like a kitten one. It even rolled over to reveal its stomach to look at Irina with its tongue out in adoration. Irina retrieved her hand back from Ozzy's head. She poked Ozzy's tummy with her toes gently with a smile, and said, "Let's go. Bring me back to Chaos City. I haven't seen my little Amy for a long time. I miss her so much." "Ow!" Ozzy flipped back onto its legs, feeling rather unsatisfied. It shook the dirt off its body. When Irina got on its back, it spread its wings, dashed through the clouds immediately, and flew toward the south. "Big Sister Zixie, I think Father should be coming home soon," Amy said as she looked at Zixie, who was busy in the kitchen. They could be coming back for lunch, but I'd better make something for you two little ones first, Zixi replied without turning back. It's okay. We're not hungry at all. We could wait for father and the rest to come back to have our meal together. Amy shook her head before tugging Anna's clothes hem. Do you agree, Anna? Anna glanced at Amy, and then looked at Zixi in the kitchen before nodding her head. I am not hungry, either. Zixi shook her head. With conviction in her voice, she said, you have to eat even if you are not hungry. You are still growing. If you don't eat your meals on time, you won't grow tall. It's fine. I like being small and short like big sister Bablat. That's so cute. Amy blinked. I want to be like big sister Shirley, tall and slender. Anna pondered for a moment before shaking her head. However, it's fine to eat my meal later today because I want to wait for them to have our meal together. Zixi turned to resignedly say to the two of them, although the food I made isn't as nice as Boss Mag's, you two little ones should at least have some. Amy and Anna shrugged their shoulders together, while Ugly Duckling simply turned its head around. Knock. Knock. Right at this time, a knock came at the door. Are they back? Anna jumped up from her chair and dashed to the door. That's great. Amy's eyes lit up, and she ran to the door with Ugly Duckling in her arms as well. Anna tiptoed and pushed open the door with some difficulty. She was stunned when she saw Shirley standing at the restaurant's door. Her usually well-groomed hair was tied up messily, and her pretty skirt became a light armor full of holes. There was a lot of blood on her, which no one knew if it was hers or belonged to others. Anna's eyes became red instantly. I'm back. A smile appeared on Shirley's face as she took out that little bunny that Anna asked Firis to bring to her. The white bunny was already dyed red by the blood. Anna dashed over and threw herself into Shirley's arms, sobbing. Shirley held Anna gently first before hugging her tightly in her arms. Her highly strung-up nerves only truly relaxed now. Big Sister Bean Sprout, Big Sister Shirley, Big Sister Camilla, you came back. Amy exclaimed in surprise. Then, she looked around them, and worriedly said, where is Father and Big Sister Mia? They are right behind us. They should be back very soon, Firis replied. She felt so good to be called Big Sister Beansprout by Amy again, and it felt great to return to Mamie Restaurant. If the Night Elves could be based in Chaos City, then she could return to work at Mamie Restaurant. That's great. We have lunch to eat now, Amy said happily. Seems like I don't have to display my culinary skills this afternoon, Zixi said as she glanced at those prepared ingredients, feeling rather wasted. Oh, yes. Where's Big Sister Aisha? Why isn't she back together with all of you? Amy said after pondering. Anna also lifted her head up with a concerned expression from Shirley's arms after hearing that. She's not coming back for the time being, but I believe she will definitely come back one day. Shirley released Anna and took hold of her hand. The wingspan is indeed written as 100m long. Babla blushed, and if Mag hadn't gestured to her to remain calm, she would have sent this annoying fellow and his stupid bird flying with a kick. Your words are rather reasonable. I will look for you again when I need to go on a trip in the future, Mag said smilingly as he tugged on Babla's clothes and walked toward Chaos City. Everything had gone smoothly today, and he even killed Borg, that old bugger, so he was in a good mood. The siege of the Night Elves was removed, and the Elves had lost their power to fight for territories in the Norland continent at the same time, so they had also contributed a little to the world's peace. Furthermore, he had a new reward from the system of flying restaurant, and its speed wasn't 130 km per hour, but Mach 5. This speed was way above the speed limit of the world's best fighter jets. Thus, Mag couldn't help but wonder what this flying fortress looked like. According to the system, the flying restaurant was a separate existence, and wasn't an improvement of the original restaurant. Currently, the system was managing it on his behalf, and he could ask for its release whenever he was ready. This is a fantastic tool for going out on a vacation, Mag thought, and he already began to plan for his next holiday. Perhaps he could bring the restaurant's staff and his good friends to the beach in the south to enjoy the sun and breeze. Then, they could have a seaside barbecue. Host, this flying restaurant is an important venue for the host's growth and also an amazing machine for setting up a restaurant rapidly in a foreign land. Please don't deem it a simple flying machine, as this is a serious insult to the flying restaurant, the system warned severely. Mamie restaurant is doing fine, so why would I go to some other place to set up a restaurant? Isn't this attending to trifles to the neglect of essentials? The process of getting popular wouldn't help improve my culinary skills apart from earning less money. Mag pursed his lips, totally disagreeing with the system. The god of cookery wouldn't be trapped in one place and restrict his experience. Only after cooking thousands of dishes and traveling thousands of kilometers can one truly be the god of cookery. I hope the host could understand this, the system said from the bottom of its heart. Okay. Just say it. When are we leaving? Mag cocked his eyebrow. He knew things weren't that simple after listening to the system's nonsense. He most likely gotta go to some places. Moreover, the black fog that the system had mentioned earlier also made him a little concerned. The death aura on Borg was obviously not right. If it weren't for the support of Irina's holy light, he might not have killed that huge black tiger and then struck down Borg. An aura that didn't belong in this world but was corroding the existence of all life forms. To this world, its influence was far more than affecting the system in cooking. This system will continue to monitor the black fog. If the physical method cannot control it effectively, the host would need to go to the farms and pastures personally to remove the black fog. You would have to leave a week from now for an unknown period of time. It would depend on how efficient the host is at removing it, the system answered. Hey, I should be considered as working for you if I am removing the black fog on your behalf. How much salary should I be paid? Mag asked with raised eyebrows. Host, you are wrong to say that. How could this be considered as working for me? This is a job that is done to maintain the ingredient supply chains for Mamie restaurant, and not done for this system. I don't care. We will calculate by its volume when we meet up with the black fog. You will pay me 1 copper coin for every cubic centimeter I clear. This price is already very fair, right? After all, it is black fog that even such a great and formidable system like you couldn't resolve. Speaking of it, this sounds quite right. That black fog is indeed very stubborn, and its drug resistance is getting stronger and stronger. Even this system with knowledge that goes back all the way to 500 million years ago couldn't eradicate it completely, the system murmured, appearing to be a little convinced. Then, let's agree on it. Mag turned into a small alley at the side, and removed the beard and the loose robe on him. Babla followed suit and removed her veil and cape too. She stuffed them into the bag that Mag passed over, and went back to her normal dressing. Babla followed Mag out of the alley, and hastened her steps to walk next to him as she curiously asked, "Do you know the leader of the Night Elves, that super beautiful princess? She came to eat at the restaurant before." Mag nodded. Babla's eyes lit up, and she expectantly said, "Then would she come to Mamie restaurant today?" Ferris and Shirley both came back today, and she seemed to have a great relationship with them. "I am not sure about that. You seem to want her to come." Mag cocked his eyebrow and looked at Babla rather surprisingly. "Ozzy, I had already gone to fetch Irina, so of course she was coming to the restaurant today, but she most probably wouldn't come during the day. Of course, I super like her." Babla nodded immediately with little stars of admiration in her eyes. "Don't tell me," an alerted look appeared in Mag's eyes, and he hesitantly said, "Did Camilla do anything to you along the way?" "She just flew while holding my collar. She almost froze me to death." Babla rolled her eyes before excitedly saying, "You didn't see it, that princess was so cool. She is just like a queen, and everyone just wants to submit to her." "Maybe she is." Mag nodded slightly with a smile on his lips. It felt rather gratifying to hear others praise his wife. You can give up hoping for anything more. Her man is a super powerful knight who came to rescue her on a super cool purple striped griffin. Although I couldn't see his face, he should be a very strapping man. Babla placed her hands on her chest as if she was still mesmerized by the scene in which that knight extended his hand to Irina. Then, she lifted her head and looked at Mag before sighing. You simply cannot compare with him. Yes. I simply can't. Mag nodded thoughtfully. He indeed couldn't compare with himself. However, Irina was indeed very charismatic. She turned the usually proud Babla into a fangirl, which was cute. Babla glanced at Mag, feeling that she might have been too harsh with her words. Clearing her throat, she said, I am only saying that you cannot compare with him, but compared to other normal men, you are still okay. After all that, Babla added, of course, I want to reiterate, this doesn't mean that I like you. Yes. I don't like children, either. Mag patted Babla's shoulder lightly before laughing loudly as he walked away. Hey? I am not a child. I am already a woman. Babla stomped her feet angrily as she glared at Mag's back. She lowered her eyes to look at her bosom, and mumbled, they are obviously big enough. Everybody who was waiting expectantly widened their eyes and looked toward the door. It must be father. Amy was the first to jump up and skip to the door. She leaped up and grasped the door handle. The door opened outward, followed by a thud. Father! Amy shouted ecstatically when she saw Mag at the door. However, she stopped running and crossed her arms across her chest. She twisted her face to the side, and aggrievedly said, Father is a baddie. You woke up and snuck away. You didn't bring Amy to fight the bad guys, and didn't make any breakfast for me. Amy is angry now. You need to appease me by kissing me, hugging me, and carrying me up high. Mag, who had already opened his arms to catch the little Lolita who was running into his arms, smiled as he looked at the angry Amy. He walked forward to pick Amy and pecked her on her cheek with a smile before saying, Yes. Father is wrong. I shouldn't have gone ahead and left without Amy. Then, he lifted Amy above his head a few times, like a little bird in flight. Ha ha ha. Amy, who pulled a long face at first, began to laugh. After lifting Amy up for a few times, Mag carried Amy in his arms and smiled. Then, can you forgive father now? Amy thought for a while before nodding. If there is a good meal following this, then I will forgive you. Okay. Then, I will cook lunch for all of us. Mag nodded smilingly as he carried Amy in. All of them did have a hard time traveling in the morning. Anna went up, and gratefully said to Mag, Uncle Mag, thank you. You're welcome. Mag rubbed Anna's head smilingly. Thank you, Shirley, who was standing behind Anna, said thankfully too. She had never expected Mag would go against the wind forest for her and Firis, and take such a huge risk to save them. For someone who had never had a friend in her life, the feeling that she felt when she saw Yabimiya and Elizabeth came to rescue them with the Lantistine warriors was indescribable. Thank you, boss and everyone, Firis also said gratefully, and she looked at Mag with a gleam in her eyes. Don't mention it. Mamie Restaurant is a big family, and I hope everyone stays safe. Mag shook his head smilingly. Even if Irina hadn't been involved, he wouldn't have watched Firis and Shirley die. Take a seat and rest for a while. I will go cook our lunch, Mag said as he put down Amy and walked to the kitchen. Zixi stood at the kitchen's door, and resignedly said to Mag, Boss Mag, you have made the little ones fussy. They no longer want to eat the food I made. We have troubled you this morning, so why don't you go over and invite Lulu and Lord Urian over for lunch too? The more, the merrier, Mag said smilingly. Great. It will be fantastic if I get to have a free meal, Zixi said smilingly and hung the apron at the side. As she walked to the front door, she mumbled, I wonder if Lord Urian is back. Everyone sat around and waited for their lunch. Babla was asking Firis about Irina and the night elves, totally different from her usual cool persona. Amy followed Mag into the kitchen. Go out and wait too, little Amy. Father will be ready very soon. Mag placed the ingredients that Zixi had already prepared into the waste bin at the side as he turned to talk to Amy. Amy went close, and whispered, Father, where's big sister Irina? Didn't you go to look for her? Did she return with you? Mag took a look outside before similarly whispering, she didn't return with us, but she should be coming to Chaos City too. Little Amy will get to meet her soon. Great! I like big sister Irina. Amy's eyes lit up, and a happy smile appeared on her face. Speaking of this, Mag suddenly remembered Amy's death notebook. He wondered what this little one wrote in it during this whole time. He tried to probe her while washing the vegetables. Little Amy, that notebook of yours, don't worry, Father. I have been recording honestly every day. Amy smiled. No, what I meant is, Mag felt an inexplicable panic when he heard the word honestly. Don't worry. I have hidden it in a place where nobody can find it, and will definitely give it to big sister Irina. That's good, Mag sniffled. This little one was so stringent that it made him panic. Zixi came back soon. Besides Lulu and Urian, Kraso came too. It seemed like they didn't go their separate ways after they got back to Chaos City. Shirley and Firis expressed their appreciation to the two great magic casters. If the great magic casters hadn't extended their help, the night elves most probably couldn't have held on until the Lantistines arrived. Boss Mag, where did you find that gang of thugs? Kraso asked Mag, who was frying the vegetables, curiously as he stood at the kitchen's entrance. They are rather fierce. That group of men in suits were brought there by Yabimiya and Elizabeth, so they had to be connected to Mamie Restaurant. 10 10th tier powerhouses and a mysterious identity. This was enough for them to conquer a territory on the Norland continent. However, even given his and Urian's experience, they still couldn't guess their origins and identity. They didn't even know which species they were. You are not going to believe me if I said I met them along the way by coincidence, but I can only say that, Mag answered smilingly. He didn't want to reveal too much, even if they were Kraso and Urian. Kraso appeared at Mag suddenly, he smelled the aroma of meat and gulped subconsciously. He pursed his lips, and said, well, it's not going to be me who is going to have a headache. If you said you met them along the way, then so be it. As long as there is lunch for me. Hey! Bad masters! You two went to beat up the baddies without me. Little Amy is angry. Amy placed her hands at her waist and twisted her head to one side. Little Amy, we didn't want to disturb your sleep. We will bring you along next time, alright, little Amy, which badda do you want to beat up? We will bring you there to beat them up right now. The two great magic casters who were over 100 years old began to try all their means to coax the little girl. 10th tier powerhouses didn't intimidate them, but coaxing their precious disciple gave them a headache. Lunch is ready. Mag came out with a big spicy grilled fish, and placed it in the middle of the two tables. Then, they removed the covers for the other dishes that filled up the table, and the rich aroma washed all over them. It was long past the time for lunch, and everyone gulped at the same time, feeling starved. Ding! Right at this moment, the doorbell rang. Irina had changed into a long white skirt somewhere and cleaned herself up. She looked just like the noble and proud princess that she used to be, and she, too, smiled when she saw Amy. She stroked her head as she said, we haven't seen each other for a long time, little Amy. Ooh! It's Princess Irina. Babla stood up immediately with her mouth slightly agape. She had just heard many stories about her from Firis, and they were just as impressive as any hero's stories in history. She didn't expect to see her so soon. Princess! Firis also stood up in surprise and walked toward the door. Is Her Highness here too? Shirley, too, stood up. Even though Irina had already said the night elves were coming to develop here in Chaos City, she didn't expect her to arrive at Mamie restaurant so soon. So this is Princess Irina? Anna peered at Irina curiously and her eyes brightened slightly. What a beautiful elf! What a beautiful elf! Is this the legendary Princess Irina? Zixi stared at Irina, astonished. However, Lulu who was sitting next to her looked at Irina warily. Why is she here? Camilla, who had just picked her chopsticks, dropped them onto the table with an unnatural expression. Oh! Mag felt his heart constrict for a moment when he saw Irina at the door, and he had a bad premonition. At first, he thought he would have at least an afternoon of buffer time to prepare for Irina's arrival, but he hadn't expected her to arrive now. Irina looked at the table full of food before looking at everyone with a smile as she said, I seem to have come at just the right time. I guess all of you wouldn't mind adding one more person. Her gaze seemed to linger on Mag for a brief moment intentionally. Of course, no problem at all. Mag quickly carried a chair over and put it right next to his. Would he have dared to say no? As for the others, apart from Camilla, they naturally wouldn't have any problem with it. And Camilla, who had a problem, had almost crawled under the table by now. This meal had gotten very dangerous, and she needed to go cool her head under the table for a moment. Is the seat oiled? There shouldn't be anything delicious under the table, right? Irina asked smilingly as she came over, holding Amy's hand, and lifted Camilla up by her collar lightly when she walked past her seat. I dropped my chopsticks. Camilla waved the chopsticks in her hand and laughed awkwardly. All right. As long as you didn't drop your rope. Irina nodded and took her seat next to Mag. She gave Mag a murderous look smilingly. Camilla blushed as she suddenly remembered that besides Mag, Irina should be the only witness. This was simply too humiliating. Mag decided to look ahead and pick up a piece of fish for Amy. He caringly said, Be careful. It's hot. It was the slaughter field of a love triangle. He could already sense it. It was so horrifying. Moreover, this was probably only the mildest slaughter field of a love triangle. You are treating us to drinks so soon? Crassus said to Irina laughingly. Yes. It's not optimal to owe the alcoholic drinks for a long time. Of course, I can't wait till tomorrow. Irina nodded with a chuckle and then looked at Mag. I will go and get the drinks. Mag got up and walked to the kitchen. Suddenly, his status in the family had been lowered. Let me help. Ferris instantly got up and walked to the kitchen. When she took the 2 big mugs of beer from Mag, she whispered, Boss, I hope you don't mind. This is how the princess behaves usually, but she doesn't mean any harm, nor does she mean to order you around. I understand. Mag nodded, feeling a little exasperated. However, he still had to put up a calm expression. All the adults had gotten a mug of beer, and the 3 kids had a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice in front of them. Why am I having the orange juice? I want to have a beer too. Babla glared at Mag angrily when she saw the fruit juice. This was a form of blatant discrimination. Only she was drinking juice like Amy and Anna. Minors are prohibited from drinking. Mag pointed to a warning sign on the wall. It's not good for children to drink. You won't be able to grow tall, Irina said to Babla seriously. Yes. Big sister Babla has to grow tall quicker. Anna is almost catching up to you. Amy nodded as she sucked in a mouthful of juice. Critical hit. Critical hit. Critical hit. Babla took a sip of the juice in an attempt to calm herself down. Hey? It tasted surprisingly good. Everyone's gaze couldn't help but look toward Mag, Irina, and Amy. The triple sharp comments were done in one go and complemented one another perfectly. Furthermore, when the 3 of them, the beautiful and elegant Irina, the delicate and cute Amy, and the mature and handsome Mag, sat together, they really looked like a family. However, All of them knew Irina and Alex were the real couple, and Alex had just killed many at the underground cavern and slaughtered Borg, saving the night elves from their end. Even though Mag was also very outstanding, and could cook all kinds of delicious dishes, Irina and he still had quite a distance between them. They weren't people that should end up together. Ferris looked at Mag and Irina, who were sitting together, and her fingers were tapping lightly under the table before she looked at Amy perplexedly again. How did Amy know the princess? Urian peered at Amy and then Irina before his gaze landed on Mag's hand for a moment thoughtfully. Come, let's celebrate for defeating the Wind Forest together today. Cheers! Krasu chuckled as he raised his glass. Cheers! Everyone touched their mugs in the middle, and then drank all of the contents in one go. This is Camilla, Countess Bartoli. She is doing the ingredient preparation work in the restaurant now. This is Zixi, and next to her is Lulu. They are our neighbors. Mag started to introduce Irina to the people sitting at the dining table. I am Bablat. I really admire you. You let me find the direction in my life. Bablat simply rushed to introduce herself. Irina looked at Bablat and nodded. Go for it. As long as you work hard enough, you will get a chance to see my back one day. I will try my very best. Bablat seemed to be very inspired as she nodded seriously. You two are dryads. Irina turned to Zixi and Lulu with a hint of surprise and curiosity in her eyes. I heard Helena got the demons to annihilate the entire dryad tribe, so I didn't expect there are dryads left in this world. Since the world tree is on you, the dryads are not exterminated. However, there seems to be a problem with your world tree. Irina said to Zixi with narrowed eyes. You could see it. Zixi looked at Irina in astonishment. Wariness, too, appeared in her eyes. The elves wanted to exterminate the dryads because the existence of the world tree could threaten the elves' tree of life. Although this speculation was baseless, it brought the dryads the disaster of extinction. Irina shook her head as she said to the two of them, I grew up underneath the tree of life, so I can sense the unusual aura on your body. But you don't have to worry, I am different from Helena. I don't think the dryads will cause harmful influence to the elves. You are just like us, who are spirits of life nurtured by nature. The tree of life chose us, while the world tree chose you. I have also felt that you are different from others. The world tree wants to get closer to you, and this is the first time it happened. You are not a bad person. Zixi nodded, smiling too. Lulu only relaxed after he heard that. Perhaps I could render some help to you. Let me see your world tree after our lunch, Irina said with a smile too. Then, I would have to bother you. Zixi nodded with hope in her eyes. Even though her body had largely recovered, there was still no news with her tummy. If Irina could help her repair the world tree, she might still be able to get pregnant. The rest didn't quite understand Irina and Zixi's conversation, but this didn't affect their mood of enjoying the good food and drinks. The hot and spicy grilled fish was the ultimate perfect match with the ice-cold beer, and together with the other scrumptious dishes, this was a complete meal full of variety. Every dish was an extreme scrumptious experience. Although this red braised pork is a little fat, it's so delicious. The aroma of the meat is rich and it melts in the mouth instantly. It is fat but not greasy. This fish head is soft and light, spicy and tasty. It's divine. This roast duck, Irina, who had 2 weeks of hardship trapped in the underground cavern, quickly immersed herself in the delicacies. She was praising every dish, and looking at Mag with an increasingly satisfied gaze. This husband was beyond fantastic. It was not useful to simply know how to fight. They couldn't be fighting every day at home, right? Having a husband who was ferocious when he was out fighting and cooked wonderful meals when he was at home was simply too blissful. Mag was also feeling rather smug as he listened to Irina's praises and took in her gaze of adoration. Yes, it was this sensation. Even if she was the unattainable elf princess in others' eyes and the leader of the powerful and independent night elves, she was still captured by him after eating his drug. No, dishes. Father, I have run out of food on my plate. I want to eat fish, Amy pouted at Mag. All right, I'll get some for you. Mag swiftly retrieved his heart that had sort of floated away, and picked a piece of fish for Amy. The lunch's ambience was unexpectedly relaxed and happy. Maybe it was because Irina knew most of them, and she didn't put on any airs, but it wasn't awkward or tense when she joined in. After lunch, all of them were a little high after drinking plenty of beer. Krasu and Urian went away noisily, saying they wanted to find a place to fight it out and decide which of them was better. Meanwhile, Shirley left with Anna and her belongings. Since she was back, Anna naturally concluded her stay at the restaurant. Let's go. Let me see your world tree. Irina and Zixi went to a corner. Zixi placed her hands flat up in front of her body. A light green beam began to glow at her lower belly. A little sapling quickly appeared on her palms. It was roughly about 2 hands high and had 3 little branches. However, the leaves were sparse as there were only 9 of them. Although they looked very green, they didn't look very lively. It looks rather different from the tree of life, and its presence is totally different. It feels like nature. Irina's eyes brightened as she looked at the world tree. Her gaze focused on the complicated leaves veins for quite some time before she looked up at Zixi. Both of you were seriously injured in the past. Yes. We weren't always lucky during our exile. Zixi nodded with a smile of resignation and sadness. Irina nodded slightly. After pondering for some time, she took out a little white porcelain bottle from a ring on her finger and removed the stopper. A rich scent of life washed over them. The world tree seemed to sense the presence, and its leaves began to quiver as if a light breeze was blowing at it. This is life's lotion. Zixi looked at the little porcelain bottle in Irina's hands in amazement. Lulu's eyes also lit up. They had once thought about life's lotion too. However, it was extremely precious and only available in the wind forest, so they had had to give up on that idea. Yes. It is able to repair certain serious injuries, maybe it could have some good effects on you and the world tree. Irina nodded as she passed the little bottle to Zixi straight away. The world tree one is living in your body now, so you can drink all of it. Let's see if it's effective. This is too precious. Zixi was hesitating, and she didn't reach out to receive the bottle. Compared to a life, this is just a bottle of special dew that the Tree of Life manufactures every year. Irina shook her head as she looked at her belly. Besides, don't you want to become a mother? There are only the 2 of you left of the Dryads. Zixi was taken aback. She was already looking at the little porcelain bottle with a hopeful gaze. She had always wanted a child for all these years, but she had lost the possibility of becoming a mother after that serious injury. Thank you very much. Zixi received the little porcelain bottle with her hands before bowing deeply to Irina. Then, she took a deep breath and tilted her head back to pour the few drops of creamy white lotion into her mouth. The rich scent of life engulfed her, and it spread to the rest of her body and limbs from her mouth cavity. It began to repair the hidden injuries in her body crazily. And a portion of the life force became a light green beam and gushed toward the world tree. The world tree, which was only about 2 hands high, began to grow gradually in front of their eyes, and green leaves began to erupt in between the branches. It slowly became a 50 centimeters tall little tree that was full of green leaves. Its entire body was glowing and shimmering, and mysterious runes could be vaguely seen on the leaves. It looked rather mysterious. Zixi opened her eyes gradually and touched her belly with an amazed expression. She could already sense that she had regained the ability to carry life. Moreover, due to the growth of the world tree, her power seemed to have increased along with it. Congratulations! You are already a 9th tier magic caster now. Irina smiled at Zixi. And, you are able to have children now. One the author wrote Tree of Life by mistake. Chapter 1275 Will you please be my mother? Irina shook her head and smiled. Don't mention it. Take it as a little compensation from me on behalf of the Wind Forest. I wish the Dryads and Elves could live in peace in the future. It would be the best if we could live in peace, Zixi replied, smiling too. Seems like we will be having small Dryads in the near future. Mag came over with 2 glasses of water smilingly. Amy came over, and curiously asked, will it be a little bear or a little cat? It probably would be a panda one. Irina said while looking at Zixi and Lulu. That would be really precious. Mag raised one eyebrow. It would be really fun if they gave birth to a national treasure too. Regardless of what it could be, I will be very happy. Zixi touched her belly gently with a blissful smile, as if there was already a life living in it right now. I am rather curious about this. Why is this tree called the World Tree? Could it really grow a world? Mag asked curiously as he looked at the World Tree that had grown a little taller. I, too, have only heard the chief talk about it once when I was little. The World Tree will form its own little world. Dryads will live happily in that little world, undisturbed by the outside world. However, the World Tree was already damaged before I was born, and that little world had vanished too. The Dryads who lost their home were injured and killed in huge numbers during the racial war. Zixi shook her head, a hint of loneliness was in her voice. I had read about it when I was in the Elven tribe. The World Tree is only fully grown after 1,000 years. Although you Dryads also have a lifespan of 1,000 years, you too probably won't get the chance to live in that little world. Irina reached out to touch a leaf of the World Tree lightly, and it shrunk back shyly. It seemed to be very conscious. Even if we can't get to live there, it would still be a good thing that our children could. Zixi smiled. She wasn't disappointed at all, instead, she was even more expectant. Zixi and Lulu said goodbye and left. Camilla had found a chance to sneak away long away. After Firis cleared the dining table, she approached Irina. Princess, where do you intend to go now? Intend to go? Irina glanced at Mag before smilingly saying, the food here is too delicious, so I decided not to go anywhere but stay here. Hey! Firis was a little taken aback. She stole a glance at Mag before going closer, and whispered, Princess, given your status, you are not really suitable to be a server. It would be bad if news got out. Irina curled her lips. Who said that I am going to be the server? I am going. Mag quickly continued, is Princess Irina looking for accommodation here? I happen to have an empty upstairs, if you need it. However, before Mag could finish, Amy already grabbed Irina's hand and pleaded, Big Sister Irina can sleep with me. Big Sister Anna has left and I am afraid to sleep alone. There's no two ways about this now, as it's hard to reject the little Lolita's request to sleep with her. Then, I will stay here and sleep with Amy. Irina smiled, stroking Amy's head. This is fantastic. Amy narrowed her eyes and rubbed against Irina's palm with a happy expression. I got intercepted. Mag raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at Irina and Amy, who had reached a consensus. His lips, too, curled upward. Firis's mouth was agape as she stared at Irina and Amy in disbelief. Why would the princess, who had never liked children, agree to sleep together with Amy? Perhaps the princess wants to practice raising a child? After all, the little mistress is about Amy's age. I wonder, where is the little mistress now? Firis thought. But she still hesitantly said, Princess, are you sure that you want to stay in the restaurant? Bean Sprout, have you already entered the long-winded old age period in advance? Irina flicked Firis's forehead with her finger. Oh! That hurts. Firis covered her forehead, and then nodded with resignation. All right. Then you will rest in the restaurant tonight. Do you have any other arrangements in the afternoon? No, I just want to have a good sleep in the afternoon. I hadn't been sleeping well for this period of time. Irina shook her head. There was a hint of tiredness in between her eyes. Mag peered at Irina, feeling his heart ache for her. He said to Firas, "Firas, you should go back and rest first. I will take good care of the princess. Get Mia and the rest to gather at the restaurant in the evening. We will have a celebration tonight." "Great. Then, I will have to trouble you, boss." Firas nodded, but she kept looking back as she left the restaurant. "Go and have a rest first." Mag locked the door before walking over to Irina. Irina wasn't in a hurry to go upstairs. Instead, she was smiling at Amy. "Little Amy, did you record your journal properly during this period?" "Yes. I noted everything down very conscientiously every single day." "Let me show you." Amy nodded instantly and ran behind the counter to retrieve that journal behind a stack of books. She passed it to Irina as if she was giving her a treasure. "Let's go. We will read it upstairs." Irina stole a glance at Mag, who had a calm demeanor as she walked up the stairs, holding Amy's hand and the journal. Fu K, Fu K, Fu *K. Is something going to happen?" Mag's expression changed as soon as Irina turned her back, and he felt as if 10,000 alpacas were galloping across his heart. 3. Even though he had been behaving very righteously and prim and proper, he would still have normal physical contact during work since he was working with his staff every day. He only wished that Amy didn't write down how Gina greeted him, the female customer's confessions, Camilla's spending a night on his bedroom floor because she was too tired, in the notebook. Although he hadn't done anything, if everything had been written down, it would have been as if he had really done it all. "I've misplanned. I should pay attention to this problem earlier and improve on it." Mag sighed in his heart. Being a respectful parent, he had never tried to read Amy's journal, so he wasn't sure what she was recording in recent times. Going upstairs, Mag discovered the big bed was already occupied by Irina and Amy. Mag smiled with gratification as he looked at Amy, who was reading the journal and laughing in Irina's arms. He closed the door gently and went to sleep on the floor of the children's room next door. What should he do? His status was falling rapidly in this family. However, when he remembered Amy's smile, his heart felt as sweet as honey. This little one was indeed the happiest when she was with her mother. Amy closed the journal and looked up to Irina seriously. "Big sister Irina. I think Father super likes you. I also super like you. Will you please be my mother?" One transliteration of panda in Chinese is bear plus cat. 2. National treasure is a nickname for in Chinese. 3. Near homophone of the profanity phrase F*ck your mother in Mandarin, literally grass mud horse. Coined circa 2009, when internet users in mainland China used grass mud horse to circumvent censorship. Pictures of alpacas are often used by later hoaxes to depict grass mud horse as if it were a real horse-like animal.